Yes, everybody. This is the Washington Wrestling Rankings podcast. I am Matt. He is Sam Otto. And tonight we have a pretty big guest on the podcast. Sam, how you doing?
I'm doing good, man. I'm so fired up for this podcast. I'm trying not to embarrass myself. I've been like fiending for this one for a good solid week here. Been in conversations with Coach Feist and just getting ready for this thing. And now here we are, ready to go. It's so exciting.
That's awesome. And I appreciate you, Sam, for really, we're doing this thing, man. And it's really cool. Coach Feist gave us some kudos pre-stream here, and that felt really nice. But we were watching Fargo over the weekend. We were going nuts for the Fargo content that we had. We were texting back and forth. Oh my gosh, Bella's in the finals. Like, we were rooting for her. Smokey's in the finals, throwing the smoke signs in the chats and stuff. And so, yep. I know you want to give a quick rundown to our Fargo All-American. So go ahead.
Yeah, that's what we're all about here is giving recognition. And we did that through our accounts and throughout some names who were All-Americaning and just people who just did well in general. But we'll run down our girls first, since they started off the tournament there in freestyle. So JoJo, who we just had in our last episode, in Fargo in our last episode, she ended up All-American and getting 6th place. Had a great run. Ashley Naranjo from Moses Lake, another nationally ranked wrestler, got 6th place as well. Mia Senega out of Everett, one of Matt's girls out there out of Everett, she got 5th place at 16U. And Libby Roberts, one of we just keep making these connections. One of Brian Owen and Inland Northwest wrestler, got 4th place out there at 110 pounds. Yeah, for freestyle as well. And then the big one for the girls, obviously, was Isabella Phillips. We had her on in episode 7. Asked her about her goals. She said, "I want to win it all," and she did it. She capped it off and had a pretty dominant performance in the finals. Everybody was watching. Everybody was tuned in, and she ended up bringing home a stop sign for the state of Washington, which is awesome, man. We love to stack those up, and she got it done for us. And then on the boys' side, Caesar, who we also just had on in the last episode, he got 7th place in freestyle. And then kind of a dark horse here, this one was super exciting too, was Smokey McClure, who was getting a lot of national publicity, beating some really, really tough wrestlers, nationally ranked wrestlers, and ends up getting to the finals and falls short, gets 2nd place. But I mean, he's going up against Sauce Cepeda from Gilroy, California, who's coached by Daniel Cormier. And I know he was disappointed, but he made us all so proud by making it that far as an 11 seed. I think he might have been the lowest seed in the finals out of all those guys, somewhere in there. I mean, most people who make it to the finals are, 1, 2, 3, 4 seeds. He was an 11 seed going up against Sauce and ended up getting a runner up. So that was awesome there. And then we got Greco going on right now. I'm getting text updates right now for the boys who are out there wrestling Greco. We're having a really good Greco tournament. We usually kind of show out a little bit more on Greco from Washington here. So Cohen Mattern, Zeke McEwen, Jack Logan are all undefeated right now in juniors. And so is Trey Haynes and Justice are both in the quarterfinals for junior Greco as well. So that'll continue on tomorrow morning. And then Dayton Fitzgibbon, Caesar, Quintanilla, Zach Motzkis, and Bryson Dolly, who's going to be going to Tahoma with Coach Feist next year, are all in the round of 16 in Greco for 16Us, and they're still wrestling right now. So action will continue tomorrow, and we'll try to keep you guys updated as much as possible, but we're looking really good in Greco, and I think that we're going to walk away with some more All-Americans again towards the end of the weekend.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome to see. But without further ado, we are going to bring in Coach Chris Feist from the Tahoma team. Now, Coach, we had mentioned, I was like, wow, where are you? You're like, I headed into the office today. And I'm like, so you went all the way to the school to come in and podcast with us? And I was like, is that even allowed? He's like, I run things over here, basically. So I could let myself in. But, Coach, how you doing over there today?
Man, I'm doing good. And I'll tell you, Matt, it's an easy commute, right? Like 10 minutes. across town, and I'm at the building. A heck of a lot better than when my wife and I were living out in Bonnie Lake, like 12 years ago, something like that. And beautiful area, love the community, but man, 50-minute drive, 167 to 18, and really more so than the drive. This has always been our community. I got out of college and got hired right out of Central to Maple Valley, to Homa High School, teach English and coach wrestling, and I've never left. I'm 24 years in, and I'll retire in this chair.
Yeah. Well, we hope not too soon, because you got a lot of good wins left in you. But before we get going, one thing I wanted to say. So Jens Pulver, Tahoma, Hall of Famer.
Little evil.
Yeah, we always grew up watching Jens, and I was always a big fan of Jens, and it's really cool to. I mean, hopefully everybody should know now, but
man, don't get me going. I got some Gen Z stories, I tell you.
And maybe that's another part. We'd love to see if we can call Jens, get him on. That might be a something we could try to figure out.
Maybe I shoot him a text. I tell you, we grew up, out of the boys club wrestling Toro as kids, right? Back in the old days, early 90s with the Staub brothers, just washing in greats. Like, I think a lot of our viewers today are probably going to be, these younger wrestlers coming up. And some of them, I don't know that they know about the foundation that was laid by people like the Staub brothers, that put work in with some of the guys that went on to, All-American and national champ in Fargo and go on to college. You talk about guys like Kirk White, you talk about their own, his own son and nephew, Staub. He was over there at Boise. I mean, there's just a wealth of coaches in this state that were positively affected and trained and mentored by the Staub brothers. So hats off to them, and Gen Z was one of them, right? Like, these Tahoma boys, we'd go down, we'd hook up down there with, like Tim Kitchen and some of the other guys that were tough back in the day. And that's where we all booked it up, was at Toro. There weren't a lot of clubs around at the time. There was, you got Everett up north, USA Everett, a lot of legends coming out of there. And down south, you had Toro. And if you wanted to get in a scrap outside the season, that's where you went.
Well, I just want to say Jens Pulver just made it into the most recent UFC game. I guess maybe he's a downloadable or unlockable character. And that literally was like last week. So they knew that, they were trying to pump the podcast that we had going on. But before we get into some of this philosophy stuff, I do want to say that we just Sam, can you announce the Spotify thing that we just happened with us in Spotify?
Yeah, I'll do it right now just to kick it off. So we just got, I guess you could say, verified by Spotify, if you will. We have enough, listeners, enough support that we're able to accept donations now. So if you're clicking on an episode and you go to the there's like an ellipsis or more or whatever on the description, you're able to donate or subscribe, like with like a monthly payment or something like that. Anything helps. That's just what we're looking for, is to be able to support this and grow. That's it all will go towards this podcast. It will go towards in season stuff. If we want to do interviews, if we want to do some live stuff at tournaments, anything like that, your support is greatly appreciated. And if you don't want to donate, just like and subscribe and do all the things that we the podcasters and content creators do to keep things going here. But yeah,
throw us a nickel so we can pay Jens Pulver to come on the podcast. That's what. But Coach, thank you for joining us. We appreciate it. I want to start with the Center Circle camp that you were just a part of before we get into some of this philosophy. So how was your time at the Center Circle camp? And how many years have you been doing that now?
Yeah. This year's camp was amazing. And, that's a label until you give it some indicators. So like we had solid kids. We had some great headliner clinicians, but really what makes that camp, for me, because I direct the day-to-day practices and kind of work with the lead clinicians. But, what makes it for me is we end up with, like 25 college athletes, most of them Washington kids that are off at, Oregon State, SFU, just all over the place, SOC, right, down there, Raider Nation. And these young adults come in and work with these high school kids, and it's phenomenal, because those college kids are competing at the highest level, and they're doing the things that these high school kids want to do. And so to have them on the mat, walking around, helping them with the technique, doing, night talks in the motivational session, it's invaluable, right? Because hometown heroes are important. You got to have them in your life. Like, you can be a fan of Brett Favre. You can be a fan of, Superman, whatever, right? Like whatever that thing is up here. But that person you can actually reach out and touch and talk to and connect with and relate to, it's powerful, man. Young adults, kids, damn adults. We all got to have heroes in our lives. And these college kids, they did a great job. They're staying after session, rolling with kids and helping them work through the technique and having, conversations with them about college life and training. And it's pretty cool. It's exhausting, but it's, it's pretty cool. This is my third year. Took my team 2 years ago. And I wouldn't say I tricked my wife because she knows me, but I'm like, hey, the team's going to a team camp. Let's take the trailer. We'll get a campground with a pool. I'll just pop in and check in on the kids. I ended up staying like the whole time, right? And so I'm just there as an observer, and I'm friends with, the guys that are, the OGs, the guys that started the camp years ago. And I just had a lot of questions, and then eventually some suggestions like, hey, what if you did it like this? And I got a call the next year from my friend, and he's like, you want to come help run camp? I was like, no. He's like, what if, this and that, and we let you do that? I was like, all right, man, I'll come. And, so last year I came in and worked with the staff and had a blast, and came back again this year, and we made some adjustments. And it's like I told all the campers, in the time I've been there, this is the best camp we've had. You got people like Chris Pendleton, head coach at Oregon State, talking up the upcoming schedule. Dude, they got Iowa coming for the opener. Right? And it's before the high school season starts. So we're gonna pack the vans, man. We're Beaver believers.
Yes.
We're heading south to get rowdy.
Yes.
But you got Pendleton there. We've developed a relationship with some of these guys and gals and getting them to come in. And we had Messenbrink come in from Penn State. He was new to us this year. He was awesome. Andrew Alvarez out of Colorado, man, he's an assassin. That guy's technique is clean. Probably one of my favorites, Gabe Dean. He's been out of the wrestling game for a while, but D1 national champ and more important, just a good human, with like words of wisdom and crisp technique to go with it. So, you put that out on center mat for kids. You surround them with hardworking, good college kids that know what they're doing. And you kind of, how did I forget, man, my guy, Alexio Garcia, right? Like best women's coach in the nation, voted by his peers, right? Out there, McKendrick doing work. And, he comes in with Cam Gear, another hometown hero, 4-time national champ. Like we had greatness all around us. Right. And, you need to, because we're camping out in classrooms, right? We're staying in beautiful Chehalis, and we're guests of Jamie Rakovich, another Washington great, head coach down there at Chehalis, showering in the locker rooms and eating in the cafeteria. But it was awesome. And, that's something that I think is important for kids to get out and do in the summer as a camp, any camp. Go somewhere, like 1-day camp, 4-day camp. If you can do it as a team, I think it's even better. Because there's more you got to learn as a team than takedowns and pins, right? Like you got to learn how to live together and love together and have some fun together, and so I really think for any team, a summer camp, a shared experience is a key aspect to cycle 3, right? Because there's 4 cycles, right? You got fall, you got winter, you got spring, you got summer, and a good program is going to have something for their kids in every cycle of the year.
We got a comment, Coach. I absolutely love this, Coach. The best 4A coach ever when I was in high school, and I went to Sunnyside, and that was from a comment viewer on IG. I almost would say your name on IG, but
big props to the Grizzlies, man. You guys do it right out there. And if you get a chance, or you did at any time, train with my boys from over there in Victor, right? Renee Torres, where you at, man?
He's in Fargo right now.
I know. Right? He's my guy.
Well, Coach, I want to get into this now a little bit because you mentioned it, and it's really nice to hear. And I think that, sometimes people, get lost a little bit in how to kind of connect, deeply. And obviously you've been able to connect for such a long time. Obviously it can't all just be about technique, right? It's got to be about a mentality. It's got to be about something inside of you. And wrestling, we've mentioned this before. I think Brandon Kaler said it on the podcast, like wrestling is not fun, right? So you have to like find these ways to connect with the sport. And I think that you, among other coaches, right, obviously, but you have the lineage, you have the history here, and we're going to kind of run down this, but you have a way. It's the Tahoma way, and you've talked about that as we reached out to you, and you've been very receptive in trying to, it's tough to do it over text, right? So here we go. I'd like to kind of give you the floor because I think a lot of people are going to tune into this to kind of hear about what you guys are doing. And you had mentioned that you have about 5 pillars of this Tahoma way. I'd really love to go individually, pillar by pillar. We can talk about it. We can have people that give some comments about it. That would be nice too. But what's the first pillar in your philosophy to building a good student athlete and just good people, I guess, on your team?
Yeah. Can I just like back up for 1 second?
Yeah, let's back up.
Like, these core values, these pillars, they're just labels until they have identifying indicators, right? Because like you could go up to your athlete after a match or up to your buddy after he just won league and like, oh, that was awesome, right? That was great. But what does that really mean, right? Because like I'm looking at you on the screen, and when I say great, Sam might have a different definition than you, Matt, than I. Right. So until we can get real clear and share a common language and understand what it is we're talking about, it's hard to meet a standard. Right. And so these core values really break down to the standards that we're trying to teach in our program that are twofold. Right. It's one. Yeah. Like, how are we going to operate as a team? Right. What's the standard when we're talking to each other about our training, our wrestling, our goal setting, like whatever the thing is, we want to be able to tap into a shared understanding, a shared purpose, so we can move forward together. Otherwise, you're going to leave people behind. Okay, so that's one. I think 2.
Jamaican Girls Wrestling says, "What's up to us?"
Go Braves!
Here.
What's up?
Go
Let's
Braves!
Go Braves.
Yeah, I think 2 though. We're trying, this might come off cliche, but right, like we're trying to arm these kids. We're trying to, hi mom.
Chris, your mom's in the chat.
Hi mom.
Coach Feist, your mom's in the chat right now. She says hi. Just want to say she's your biggest fan. That's really sweet.
Mom, I love you.
Moms are a big fan of our podcast. Just let
they
you know.
are.
Everyone should be a big fan of the podcast. They love wrestling, right? We're here talking wrestling. We're highlighting kids. We're talking about programs. Like, we need more of this. Man, we gotta not just grow the sport, but we gotta promote it and we gotta celebrate it and like give our community something to rally around. So yeah, of course, mom should be in the chat. Tell dad I said what's up. So I think what I was trying to say though is like, eventually everyone puts their shoes in the center circle, right? Whether it's metaphorically or physically, you will not wrestle forever. And we've all heard like, oh, greatest and oldest sport in the world, a way of life. Well, those slogans stick because they ring true. So like, if this truly is the greatest sport in the world, and if this is your way of life, these little habits that become who you are over time, we want to make sure that 1, they're the right habits, and 2, you understand how that's going to carry you right to that next phase, and it's going to help you level up in whatever that next phase is. Because we all go on and we run podcasts and we raise families and we teach in schools and run businesses, and I'm a firm believer this is the greatest sport. I'm biased, but there's a reason why people want to hire wrestlers, right? Because of the traits and the values and the skills that it teaches. So when we talk about the pillars, it's one, we want to make sure everyone in the family, everyone in the organization, everyone in the program has a really clear understanding of what it is we're talking about, so you can meet the standard. That's level one, right? And I guess, family, grit, effort.
Coach, we got another comment now. Hey, we asked for the floodgates to open, and now they're getting open. But Michael, and I don't want to mispronounce your last name, but maybe it's Wait or Coach. My son attended Center Circle for the first time this week, and on the ride home, he told me one of his top highlights was your discussions with them. Thank you for being a positive role model. That's really awesome, Coach.
Thanks, Michael.
And then Laz and Bryson are in the quarterfinals. So I don't know if that's new updates, but I know, Bryson's your kid coming up here, right? That's somebody who I'm sure has a very bright future with you. But sorry to interrupt you. Continue.
No, man. No, that's what this is. This is the format. Let them come. You know what I mean? We'll jump in. We'll jump out. I got a little ADHD, so I might see the squirrel over the window, be like, squirrel. I'll come back.
This is, Sam, it's kind of weird. This is like the third podcast we've done. We've only done 9, but three of the 9's been by an open window. It's like this is the spot here. I feel like the sun's shining in here. There might be a special delivery coming up. You just don't know what you're going to get here. This is great. Sorry.
Yeah, according to Devin Fry, real quick, Bryson Dolly just won over Jackson Shipley from Texas, 8-6. He's on to the quarters. He's got to win one more in the All-American.
So boy.
Good kid. Sorry.
No, man. Like I said, we'll jump in and out of this thing. But I think we were talking a little bit about, the Tahoma way and the core values, and creating a shared vocabulary and understanding so we can have important conversations about who we are and what we're trying to do. And it's served us really well as we prepare for competitions in our training. It's not something new to us. It's a little different. Doug and I, aka Boomtown, aka Boomer, one of my best friends, been on staff with me since go. I think I've been here 22 years. He's been with me 20 of them. We used to have a big poster in there that said Tahoma style wrestling, and it had these different things on it. We want to talk about it. It wasn't clear, and it was kind of this teachable point of view, third point document, right? Like you're trying to teach these young adults about your point of view on life and reality and wrestling. And it can't be stagnant, because every interaction we have, every event, it affects us and changes us in a positive or negative way, right? And so as those like experiences stack up, your point of view changes and you start to look at things different. And so if you don't adjust and change with that and then verbalize it to people, you kind of get lost a little bit. So 3 years ago, Doug and I sat down and we started really, we had a big whiteboard in front of us. And I think we spent like 3 hours just like brainstorming. Who are we? Like, what are we trying to do for these kids and these families? And really we ended up honing in on like, what are the most important things to this program? We don't talk about team. We talk about program. Good teams come and go, right? You get a couple dads together that love it, and they bring their kids through juniors, and pretty soon they're on the high school scene, and those couple kids got 3 or 4 buddies, and bam, you got a top 4 team, right? And if you don't have the structures in place along the way that are in a program, those kids graduate. And those parents that are running the tournaments and driving kids to camps and they're gone. And now you're back to this middle of the pack team again, right? Whereas a program, right, there's structures in place that, regardless of the people heading up those different pillars, those different structures, those booster clubs, those different things, you're able to sustain something over time, So the Tahoma way was a result of us looking at where we've been, where we are, and where we want to go. It was also an attempt to heal our community. We had a lot of hard in the last 6 years, a lot of hard. and I think a lot of people can relate to that because I'm not unique to that. No one is. Like, hard comes in a lot of different ways, but
Coach, we got a question right here. What does creating that culture look like when you're taking over a new program? That's where we are. So we're taking over the program from our old head coach over 20 years in the program. But he mentions here specifically, like, are you writing these on the wall? Are they daily talks after practice? This is great, by the way. Sorry for the long-winded interruption.
That's from Martin Mitchell, who is a 4-time state champ from Tenasco.
Yeah, no,
friend of the podcast.
I know Martin. I know Martin. Yeah. He's good people. Yeah, no, that's a good question.
Martin, thank you for the comment and thanks for joining us, bud. Really appreciate that. So, Coach, what is creating that culture look like when you're, taking over? So, imagine you're speaking to somebody taking over a new program. Are we talking about these things daily, or are they spoken about at the beginning and then
that's a great question, and there's a lot of factors, and what I mean by that, like, ironically, I was just talking to a young man 2 days ago, college guy, Stover. What's up? You're amazing. Go Corbin Wrestling. He's a Chiawana great. A couple times state champ. He's doing it right down in Corbin right now, wrestling in Oregon and working on his teaching degree. I think he just did his student teaching, and he's going to come take a program someday, somewhere. And one of the things that he and I are talking about is like, man, they're building a new spot up there in Pasco, right? Like they're building a new school. The timing of it, is it good to jump in right there, but then you got to consider too, he's got a lot of great men around him. Coach Jack Anderson, who built Chiawana, from the ground up, right? His uncle, who's heading up Kamiakin right now. Like the list goes on, right? And the things that we kind of talked about were like, there's real advantage to going into an existing program with strong leadership and kind of getting the X's and O's down. Like, what's this weight descent plan thing? And how do I schedule buses and, POs to pay for the turn, like all these things, right? So there's a real benefit to being a strong assistant for a good program. But you got to pick and choose careful because, you could roll into a team or a program that, maybe it's not being done to your personal standard or to what you aspire to be. And so maybe you learn the hard way, like the things I don't want to do it like that, versus if you're taking over a new program, and that's unique. You're not getting a new high school built very often, but when you do, there's a difference between changing culture and building culture. Because, if you roll into a school, whether you're the guy after the guy that won, multiple state titles and things are going great, or you're rolling into, the team that hasn't won a duel in 3 years, like you can't first build culture until you deconstruct it, until you really understand what is the culture. Like, you got to spend some time assessing where are you at, where have we come from, because there's like habits are built over time. And if you roll into a team as a first-year coach and they have all these habits and these mental models of the way things should be, good or bad, before you can impact someone and make significant change, you might have to deconstruct some things. So I think to answer Coach's question, though, yes, we do have posters of the Tahoma Way up on the wall, but a poster is just a piece of paper until you turn it to action. Right. And before it can become action, again, I'll go back to, you have to have a shared understanding of what those words mean. So, our team meets once or twice a week in a classroom setting. We don't do it in the mat room. I like to keep our spaces specific for what they're designed for. When you walk into the room, we're going to train and we're going to compete and we're going to prepare. We're going to prepare to win. And when we walk into a classroom, that's a learning center. That's time to talk philosophy. That's time to talk strategy. That's time, and there's some carryover, like a wrestling room is a classroom. You're teaching things, you're teaching concepts, skills. But we try to save our mental preparation and our goal setting and our system of belief for a classroom. We like to build in and use some of our tools connected to that, whether it be our film study, through MatBoss, whether it be through our goal reflection that we're going to send the Google Doc to the kids that has the reflective questions for, the season, the month, the week. Boomer and I are both teachers. We've been educators for a long time. And so, we know how to teach. And if I want to show someone how to flare off a double into a Turk, right? Like I got to be on the mat and we're going to put hands on each other because that's, body kinesthetic awareness and that's the place for that. But if I want a kid to be reflective and to process information and to have conversations with a teammate about what and why, the classroom's the right place for that, I believe. So yeah, we do have regular weekly mental training sessions and discussions and lectures.
Now, Coach, let me ask you this question. When you go to the classroom, are you adding an hour to your day? So like, do you guys have, let's say you practice from 3 to 6 every day on those 1 to 2 times a week that you're coming into the classroom? Are you doing that, before practice? Are you adding that to after practice? What's that process like? Are you doing it in place of practice?
The practice schedule and structure is fluid depending on what we need. You can't be rigid to this block of time and this and that because, like most high schools, we got a lot of programs running here. We share space with our women's team. You got a duel on Wednesday and they've got to mix up on Thursday. And so, I really look at the practice schedule in 3 phases. You've got early season, you got mid-season, you got prep for postseason. And if we're going to do a learning session, that's on the calendar built in for 30 minutes. I try not to go over 30 minutes before practice starts, right? Okay. Before the physical practice starts, right? The training aspect of it.
And then, okay, so getting back to your 5 pillars of the Tahoma Way. So I know that we had talked about at some times, leadership, servant leaders. Is that the first pillar? Do you build your pillars like a pyramid? Does it, do we have to get through phase 1 in order to really understand phase 2? Or is this a 5 compiled like list, a list to live by all together as one?
So they're values, right? And we don't value one more than the other though. Like when I say it's a value, these are, we went into a room with kids and talked about values and like what's important to us. And we co-create it like based on what they said, like, hey, here's where we're at, guys. Where do we want to go? But more importantly, who do we want to be? Okay. And we heard a lot of common themes and, family, grit, effort, gratitude, leadership. Like they didn't maybe use that word exactly, but these are the essence of the conversations. And I started, and I always start every season. I share my personal core values, right? Love, servant leadership, faith, gratitude, and kindness, right? Those guide me, right? Those help keep me in check and I keep them on my board, my whiteboard. I keep them at my house. And, I got to ask myself, like, was that comment that I just said to my wife or my son kind, right? Because if it wasn't, then why am I saying it, right? Because otherwise I'm false, I'm fake, right? If I really value these things, I have to live them. And that's what we're trying to do with these kids is like, hey, what do we value, right? What are we trying to be? Don't get me wrong. They all get one of the primary objectives in the assignment. We want to be in position to be a top 3 team in state every year. Because if you're a top 3 team in state, go have your best 2 days and you can win it. Okay, right? You could be the number 3 guy ranked all year, 4, even lower. But in my mind, and looking at state tournaments over time, those top 3 teams usually walk in thinking they're going to win the tournament, right? So that's where we're trying to be. But along with that, it's like it's too much of a grind just to focus on that, right? And not just the season, but a 4-year career. And eventually you go on to college. Like we got to armor ourselves with something bigger than that, something more important than that. so that when we're having really hard conversations about that overtime loss in the duel, right? About that semifinals loss and then the slide at state, right? I'm coming back as the state champ and I'm ready to repeat. And I didn't just lose my semis, but I lost my next round. Now I'm wrestling for fifth. I don't even want to be here. Like those, like we have to have a shared understanding of what it means to be family in that moment, to put your arms around that guy and give him that moment to cry. Maybe you cry with him, and then we pick ourselves up and we go do work, because that's what you expect of family. That's getting gritty, right? Like in that tough moment. And it's okay to cry and still be gritty. Like that's the thing. We're human, right? We don't need a false bravado of the, oh, we're so tough. Well, yeah, we're tough, but we feel too. We hurt, you know? And
yeah,
like
Sam's a big crier.
Every time I lost, I cried.
It's good for the soul.
Coach, can we first get so what were the 5 pillars again? I'm going to write them down here as a comment and I can bring the comment back up. So family's 1, right?
Yeah.
Grit,
yeah.
right?
Grit.
Keep going.
Learning mindset.
Yeah.
Be a learner, right?
Okay.
Gratitude.
Learning, mindset, gratitude,
leadership.
And leadership. Okay, so that should be 1.
Coach
2,
is
3,
writing
4,
all this
5.
down right now because he's bringing this to the Everett Seagulls this year. He's fired up. We're learning from you out here, Coach Feist.
Hey, Matt,
you're dang right.
Shoot me an email. Anyone on this podcast, shoot me an email. cfeist@tahomasd.us. There's no secrets. There's nothing new. This is all begged, borrowed, and stolen from other smarter people that I've put together with the help of other good people to try to do what we're trying to do, right? It's just like there's no new wrestling moves, really. Like maybe it's always just a variation of something else that we've now tweaked and made better or made our own. Like I'm part of this community, and as such, I will email you my docs. I will email you my plans. I like whatever.
Now, I can attest to this too, because with Coach Feist and communicating with podcast guests, he has been the most receptive, the most, thorough.
You really don't find it. You really don't find that out there.
Awesome. So I was telling my brother earlier today. He's driving back from Fargo. He's like, "Who do you got on tonight?" I was like, "We got Coach Feist," and he was like, "What do you think?" I was like, "Dude, this is gonna be the best podcast ever." The guy is like literally like he just leaves it all out there. It's so great. But this is a good segue though, Coach, because you were talking about learning from others, and I did a little research on you. You were talking to you have something on your guys' Tahoma Wrestling website about your coach from Fife High School, Coach Brown. I want to ask you what he meant to you, and what did you learn from him, and is a lot of the core values and stuff that you are implementing now from him, or what was your experience with him, and how did you what are the things that you're doing now that stem from Coach Brown?
Now, Coach, before you answer that, I did read an excerpt that you had said in an interview about Coach Brown, and it kind of touched me a little bit because, I would like to imagine that I try my best to coach like Coach Brown. The way you had said it was that he wore a singlet and then he wore his collared shirt and he had his straps over the singlet every day. And then he would tell you, he would give you kind words always inside and outside of the mat as he was proceeding to tell you that it would be a 2-ringer podcast. But he was always known for, or podcast, sorry, 2-ringer practice. And you would always know that you could count on his positivity, even though you guys were in there to battle. So I think on your Tahoma Wrestling page, you have a picture of you in a collared shirt with your singlet over. I think it's a little bit of a homage to your old coach. But it sounds like, it means a lot to you. But just in reading how you described him and what he was able to give to you kind of brought me back a little bit, because it sometimes as coaches you need to reanalyze kind of why you're there. Sometimes you're so entranced in the wins and losses sometimes, but it's also you get away from it, but you're molding young men, and you got to remember that you're the pillar of positivity for them. Sometimes they don't have anything else. You don't know where these kids are coming from sometimes. So sorry, but tell us about Coach Brown.
I'm going to, but I got to say, when you're writing something or you're in a newspaper interview, etc., you go to the head coach, right? There are no great teams or great programs without great assistants. And Larry Brown and Jeff Nelson had a run, in the early 90s, late 80s, and they actually retired together in 95. The last match they coached was my state finals match in 1995. And when I talk about Coach Brown lovingly, or when I write about him and I reflect about him, it's really Coach Brown and Coach Nelson. Coach Nelson was my 8th grade English teacher and my first wrestling coach. That we're a military family. We're here, there, and everywhere, right? Like left coast, right coast. And I rolled in, in the fall to a Surprise Lake Middle School in Milton, Washington. A little skater punk, right, with a bad hairdo over my face, looked like flock of seagulls, right? And had my skateboard with me, and I didn't even know what wrestling was. I think I'd played every sport there was except wrestling. And all of a sudden, come November, I'm in this room, and my life changed. Like I'd found it. I'd found this way of life. I'd found the greatest and oldest sport ever. And then he passed me off to Coach Brown down at the high school. And those two together, like they didn't just change my life. They might have saved my life. I was a little bit of a rough customer. I ain't gonna go into details on that. But I'll tell you, I sit at this desk and a kid will look across at me as maybe I'm trying to positively discipline them and possibly suspend them. And I hear, you just don't understand. I'm like, my guy, I do. Trust me. No, but what they did for me is I don't know that I could ever pay them back. They made me believe in myself, and they set a really high bar and let me know and let us know when we weren't meeting it. And they held me accountable, which is hard, to be told you're wrong. And sometimes you're not ready to receive it at that time. I think that's true with all communication. Like you can tell someone something and they hear you, but they might not be ready to receive it. And there have been so many times in the past 20 years that I'm coaching and I finally get it, right? And I'm thankful to them, and I'm thankful to God that I had them. I have great parents and a loving family and a great support structure. But, believe it or not, sometimes the 16-year-old doesn't want to listen to his parents. And I had these caring, loving, tough-ass men in my life that, that kept me going in the right direction and didn't just pass me off. They left me with advice and values that propelled me. Like I was, I became an English teacher and a wrestling coach. Okay. Coach Nelson was an English teacher. Coach Brown was a history teacher, right? Coach Brown was an All-American for Central Washington University. My senior year, I'm driving back from the Everett Classic, It was the first tournament that I had won that year. And I'm in the front seat with him, and he looks over me. He was like, "You're ready." And I'm like, "For what?" He's like, "You're going to win state." And I'm looking at him. I'm like, "Dude, what are you talking about?" And like just that moment of belief, and he's like, "Well, yeah, I mean, it's not much different. You get seated and you wrestle this guy and you work your way through the bracket and you're in the finals. And then you just go win that one." And he just like makes it sound so easy all of a sudden. And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I could do that." That's the wrestling side of it. The life side of it is being pulled aside when you're making bad decisions and you moved out / got kicked out of your house because you ain't being a good boy. And your wrestling coach finds you at your job pumping gas and helps you put a plan together to make amends and come home and be right and do right and hold you accountable to things you say. Like that's uncommon. That's not only uncommon, that's where I first started really realizing that it's not only okay, but it's important for young men to hear from other men that they love them, right? That's hard for people. That's hard sometimes with family, blood family, right? Because there's two kinds. There's born family and chosen. And, for a 16, 17-year-old young man to look at another man and say, "Hey, I love you," and to mean it and not just say it, but to actualize it, because love shows up, right? Got that from a wise young man as well at camp this weekend. Another shout out to Stover. That guy's wise beyond his age, but it wasn't his. His mom gave it to him.
And back are the moms.
Yeah,
We're
right.
circled all the way back to the moms
Right?
again here.
Yeah,
And-
no, that's what I'm saying. So yeah, you asked me about Coach Brown. You know, you asked me about my coaches in high school. They put me on a trajectory for success for life because they set a standard, helped me meet it, and then gave me an example of how to teach and coach, but more importantly, how to love young men and how to make a difference in their life. That's what it is, man.
Do you feel that you got like a sliver of let me back up a little bit. Did you always know you wanted to coach, like as you were going through it at all, or did you feel like once you graduated high school you had a great coach and maybe it started to kind of grow on you in that way? Or
man, I was going in the Navy, right? Like you know, I'm gonna use a label again. Good, great. I was a good high school wrestler. I wasn't great. You know, win a state title my senior year. Went out to senior nationals. Did pretty well. Couple matches short of getting in there, but I didn't have a bunch of offers. They, Todd Owens, he's the head coach out at KM right now. He was coaching the T-Birds out there, right? He was coaching Highline at the time, and he was trying to get me out there, and I was thinking about it, but it's also like looking at this Navy route. You know, my dad was in the Navy, and maybe this thing I'll do, and then go to college. And Coach Brown encouraged me to go visit my buddy Jeremy Brummett. You know, he graduated the year before me. He's a couple-time finalist and a champ out of Fife, and he's a freshman out there at Central. And I went up there and stayed with him and checked out the campus, and ended up going over back to Moses Lake to wrestle. I think it was Freestyle State that year at some tournament. But I left that experience going, man, this was fun. This is cool. I do want to keep wrestling. And, Jeremy put me in contact with Kevin Pine, who was the head coach at the time out there. And Pine got a hold of me, and a couple weeks later I had a letter in the mail saying, hey, we want you. And that was it. I ended up spending 6 of the best years of my life in Ellensburg. If Boomer were here, he'd say, yeah, a lot of people go to school for 6 years. They're called doctors.
That's awesome.
So let's get back to the 5 pillars. You had mentioned about family, and it's kind of real easy to kind of hear as you're talking through it, teaching guys to understand, to be able to say to another one that I love you, be able to be kind of a resource for them to cry, shoulder to cry on if that's what's needed, but learn how to turn around and then pick it back up. So I would assume that leads into that grit conversation, because no. Okay. Yeah. So
we don't play off each other, but gratitude.
Okay. Gratitude. Yeah. Let's move on to that.
So, okay. I try to break it down like this, right? Like to be grateful, right? To truly be grateful for something. Like if we're gonna acknowledge that wrestling is the greatest sport, right? The greatest and oldest sport. And I believe that. I believe that very much. Then I also believe you have to be grateful for all of it, right? Because whether it's center mat at the state finals and your hands going up, or that JV tournament and your first, maybe your first win, right? And that feeling, like I'm talking to a couple of wrestlers, that feeling, that brief feeling of like, whatever it is, accomplishment, joy, pride, like it's amazing. I'm sad more people can't have it, right? It takes a lot of hard work to have that hand raised, to have that feeling. And it's awesome. It's wonderful. But you can't be grateful for that and not grateful for that hard loss, for that semifinal slide, right? For that really, really tough practice where like your question, do I even want to be here today? Okay. Versus the really fun one where you were getting all the takedowns and you feel good and you're not banged up, and like, yeah, you have to be grateful for all of it. And I say that's key. I don't know, guys. I feel like I'm jumping in and out here on the screen.
No, you're fine. You're perfectly
tracking?
fine. Yep, I can see you.
Okay.
You're doing
Okay.
great. You're doing great.
Okay. so that gratitude piece, right? Like, there's levels. And as young kids, you're taught to say thank you when someone puts a plate of food in front of you, or they open the door for you, and like to say it and to show it. That's a really important phase to this. But to be really reflective on your experience, both the good and the bad, the win and the loss, is hard to be grateful for that loss.
Yeah.
And I'm going to take this somewhere a little bit different now, because I told you that a few years back, our community was hurting pretty good, right? We had a lot of loss, and then you throw a pandemic in there, and I'm not talking about an overtime loss. I'm talking about the loss of a brother suddenly. I'm talking about, that's in 2018, and one of our athletes, one of our brothers, one of our family members, he's hurting real bad. And it affects all of us because we knew the brother and we cared about him and he trained with us. And then you roll down a little bit, and I lose my father, right? I lose my father suddenly. And that's messing with me, right? Like, and I'm trying to hold it together and lead this ship and keep things running. And it feels like sometimes when that ball starts rolling, it gets bigger and faster. And we lost another child, a dynamic, beautiful boy, a champion, who was larger than life. And whether it's your blood brother or your chosen brother, like the effects of that on the family, right? The effects of that on the team, on the program, that's hard. And it just kept rolling. We get into this pandemic, and we're still dealing with that loss. And I'm kind of jumping back and forth between team and personal. As we start to come out of the pandemic, I lost my very good boyhood friend to COVID. A young man I wrestled with under Larry Brown and Jeff Nelson, and we went to college together, and we were raising our children together. And surprise, I got this new baby boy, and I'm 45, and he's over holding this baby, and we're loving on each other. And he was gone 6 weeks later. It was crazy. And as I'm dealing with all of this grief and this hard, and trying to manage it, and trying to keep this team and this program going while we're still dealing with our shared grief and this hard, I went to gratitude, right? I went to gratitude because I believe to exist is the greatest gift, to have life, right? And having that new baby boy in my arms, every child I've had, I got this beautiful family, and it's so much joy, and my wife, I got all these beautiful blessings. And how can I be so grateful and like, just like, this is awesome and life's the greatest gift, and grateful for that, if I can't be grateful for these hard losses, right? Because it's all part of the plan. Life-changing interview I saw was with Stephen Colbert and Anderson Cooper, a few years back. It's called A Beautiful Conversation About Grief. So this gratitude piece, a lot of it I took from Colbert, and I've watched it so many times. Like sometimes, like in a pool on the carpet, like trying to pull myself together and make sense of this gratitude thing, because what he said blows my mind. It still does. Like, I don't have any of these pillars. There is no like, oh, I've got it. That's not what this is. These are things I aspire to every day. These are things that I have to try to get better at and understand if I'm going to try to lead others in that same journey. And the thing that Colbert said was true gratitude. I'm gonna mess this up a little bit, but it's being grateful for that thing you most wish had not happened to you. To be grateful for that thing that you most wish had not happened. And that is hard, right? But then I'll come back to, if I really believe that to live, to have existence, to have life is the greatest gift, how can I not be grateful for all of it, right? That's what it is. And so when you're having conversations with kids about being grateful for that back bracket slide and that overtime loss, and trying to get them to be reflective and learn from it. Like I watched an interview on Flow of Bo Bassett, and he was talking about that loss. He took it, who's number one, and how it shaped him and it changed him, and he moved forward. And I believe that it's awesome. Like that's the mindset you want your athlete to have. But what is so much more powerful is when they can take that learning, when they can take that experience and they can apply it to that really hard life thing. Because this is all a game, man. This is a sport that teaches us how to walk as a man or a woman through life. And when your child passes or your father dies, to be grateful for it. You don't like it. You're not happy because of it, but you're grateful for the experience that you had. And you're grateful for the memories that keep pushing you forward, right? There's a scar on your heart, okay? Not a hole, a scar, because that hole will fill and you will be forever changed, right? But stronger for it. But you have to get past that, why me, oh, poor me, right? That's a natural phase. You can have that. It can't be why me. Why not me? Why not me? I'm human, right? Take it back to wrestling. Yeah, I lost in the semis. I lost 2 more and I placed. Oh, woe is me. No. Like, hey, you can do it all right. You can train hard. You can go to bed early. You can eat the right things and still lose. That happens. Be grateful for it. It doesn't negate your process. It doesn't make you lesser, right? Sorry, man. I went down that hole with you.
No, Coach, this is great, and I really appreciate it. This is actually this is a great time to let the Instagram users know that we're coming up on an hour. If you want to continue on with Coach Feist, because we got a lot more to get into, please jump into our YouTube or our Facebook. The link is in our bio. I'm going to go ahead and end that there on our Instagram. It's crazy that Instagram only lets us go live for an hour, but that's probably because we're only episode 9. Probably 20, they're going to have to let us go a little bit longer than an hour. But Coach, I just wanted to personally say that I feel exactly what you're kind of talking about here, because I want to bring it back. So like I lost my grandmother, and that was at a period of my life when my grandma raised me essentially, and I didn't really have a mom. And when my grandma dies, like losing your parent, a lot of people don't have to go through that until they're much older, and hopefully, right? Then a lot of people go through it earlier. And it was just one of those experiences where I'm like, okay, I lost my mom. It's like, I could let this ruin me, or I could turn around, pour myself into the people. Cause at that time I'd really grown a lot of, core friendships that I've still had, and will have forever during that time. And I decided to say, hey, thankful for all my time that I spent with my grandmother, but I'm going to make sure that she sees that I continue on in my life in a successful way. And I turned around and, I've built pretty much everything right off the day of that, in my life, something that was really tough to do. And I think, yes, those losses, you can bring it right back to wrestling. That, when you see these losses happen on the mat. And I actually want to go back to one. I think you remember when Johnson, I want to say he lost in the finals match, and he had thrown his medals away, right? If you remember, I think you were around at that time, right? Were you a head coach or assistant coach at that time? I want to say
Andrew Johnson?
Andrew Johnson, I think, or no, Michael Johnson.
Mike.
Yeah. And he was so frustrated. And so how do you feel about that instant, because I deal with this a lot, and I'm asking coach to coach, I guess. When that loss happens, I know every kid is different. Do you allow them a space to vent their frustration through that loss before you get to them? Do you think it works a little bit better if you give them some time, or go up, give them that shoulder right away? What is your personal philosophy on that?
You went way back to like, I think maybe my second year as a head coach.
Yeah, Coach, we're old.
Yeah, we were there.
But I was there, and that was my freshman year, I want to say, and I was at the state tournament. I had started wrestling in 8th grade, so it was all just a big thing to me. And I remember 2 things very specifically from that state tournament was the Johnson brother throwing his medal away in the garbage, and then our heavyweight got removed from the tournament from a loss. So I remember that, but I also remember wrestling Koeman, our state champion,
Kevin
Justin
Koeman,
Boyce,
man.
wrestling Kevin Koeman in the finals, and I thought that was a really great match. So, obviously another name, but anyway, go back.
Kevin was awesome. Yeah, I remember that match. He's actually back in the Valley now with his wife and his 2 little girls. He's
it's awesome.
Coaching junior football, and you ask philosophy about loss and how kids are dealing with it, and each kid is different, and you try to hold everyone to the same standard, but you also got to meet kids where they're at, and how I handled Johnson and his emotions versus how I would handle a kid now. I mean, shoot, probably one of the greatest lessons I ever learned was working with a tough kid. He's a 4-time placer for us, and came off a season where he takes second, and his junior year just didn't go the way he wanted, and he was taking the loss really hard. And this is a young man that I know well and that I love, right? And I still love him, but I damaged our relationship in the way that I handled it in the moment. And the thing that really still to this day bothers me about it is I'm watching him just kind of lose it, like after the semis, and that backdoor match is coming up and he's just not there. And I'm trying to talk him into, hey, you're okay. And, to give him a hug. And at one point, I thought he's not snapping out of it. And I went like this tough love place, like, hey, snap out of it. Wake the bleep up. And I kind of jumped him a little bit. And it did not go well, at all. It was not the result I wanted. And it damaged our relationship, even going into his senior year, after that. And that's regret. That's I've been in the game for a little while at that point. This might have been, I don't even know, 8 years ago, 9 years. I'm starting to lose track. But I think I said earlier, like all of our experiences, our losses, our bad interactions, negative, whatever, they shape us, they form us, they change who we are. And though that was a really hard, disappointing way I handled that situation, I learned from it because I got a similar situation this year. High caliber kid, supposed to be in the finals, loses the match that no one thinks he's going to lose, and he's crushed, right? Like he is just beside himself. And I felt like I was having deja vu, and I see this boy crying, and I'll never go back to that hard love moment again. That one's off the books for me. And I just let him cry, and I sat next to him. And when it was time to go and he wasn't ready, I had to physically get him up and move him, but not in that rough way. I just put my hands on his face and lifted him and told him I loved him. Hey, this is going to be okay, man. And he went out and pinned his way to third and then continued with his healing, but each of those interactions are different, depending on who the child is and what they need at that time. And I'm no expert. I've just been doing it for a long time, and I'm learning every year more about kids and young adults, and more importantly, how to communicate. Like so much of coaching is how you communicate your philosophy and your message to family, right? To parents, to siblings, like how you talk to the team about the expectation, how you talk one-on-one. And you, as a newer coach, I thought I knew what I was doing and I was communicating clearly, but it was one message to everyone, this blanket message, right? And that wasn't the right way. Similar to running a practice. You can't run one practice style every day, all day for 3 months, because I got a flyweight down here that's quick as heck and wants to hit low singles and swings and is flying all over the place. And I got a heavyweight over here that like wants to get some more chicken wings, but still's got a good lat drop, right? Like I can't run them through the exact same practice and expect that they're both going to have the tools they need to go be successful. It's the same thing when you communicate to a kid about a tough loss, or when you try to get a kid to set goals or buy in to your philosophy and your beliefs. You have to meet them where they're at, and you have to know enough about them and where they've come from for them to really hear you. Right. I don't know if that makes sense, but
no, it does, because, I ask the question because I had a tough stint with it last year. Now, we had taken over our team first year head coaches back in, so we're kind of, we're at the whiteboard and we're still putting stuff on the whiteboard, still trying to figure it out, but it's going to be ever evolving. And I think that if you go in, like you said, with a rigid way of thinking about it, then I think it's not going to end up well. You got to be molded. You got to be able to, take that. And so by the end of the season, I kind of let them do their thing. Sometimes people need to decompress in the ways they want to. And because I was sensing exactly what you're talking about. I was coming right up because I was that kid. I can use that little bit of stuff right after it happened to bring me from level 10 to 5 real quick. But some kids aren't that way. They have to be brought to 5 on their own. And, nothing a parent could do about it. I also want to back up a little bit on gratitude, and something that as you're talking about, it's just these things are spinning through my mind because I love being a coach, and it was really fun. We had this project kid started wrestling very first time in high school. It's like, I just wanted to do it so I can get better at football. I'm like, okay, man, I love it because keeps showing up. He keeps, now he's not the best athlete yet. He doesn't know how to wrestle yet, but we're going to get there. And at a JV tournament, like you said, he gets his first win, and just, it's weird the emotions that come over you when you care about a kid, and then the second he got off the mat, I said, you go up and you go give your dad a hug right now. And he goes up and he kind of gave him a small one, he's a big man, just won his first match. He walks because his dad was across the gym. He walks all the way back to me, and I said, now you go up there and you give him a real hug. And he goes, oh, damn. And then he comes up and his dad's like, what are you doing here? He goes, coach said I have to give you a real hug. So he goes in for the real one, and I could see the dad kind of wipe it away from his eye and point to me. And I thought, man, this is why I do it, and,
yes.
And that goes, like, for you got a lot of kids placing top, but it goes all the way down to the JV tournaments. I think that's important for you to talk about because somebody's success story can start anywhere, and it's good to give the gratitude all the way down from the bottom to the top. And if you can't do it in everything, it's never going to come, or essentially that's kind of how I imagine it. It's all the time, and then if you get that feeling of family around you, then you can experience those things. And so I'm kind of getting where you're going here. Gratitude, family. What do you think we should dive into next? So we did family, gratitude. How do we move into the next pillar?
Grit, learning mindset. It's all important. I think.
How do you teach grit? Do you think you can teach grit?
So that's a good question, right? Because some people, if you talk to them, you say, no, that's intrinsic, right? That's something you're born with, or it's shaped through long-term experiences. And so for us, it's like, okay, goal setting's a part of that, right? Because when you come short of your goals, how do you keep moving forward, right? Celebrating like small wins, right? That are going to build up over time and armor you and like eventually lead to that big win. Having conversations about what it looks and sounds like in the moment, right? Like pointing it out. Okay. Like you're going to see examples of it. Every practice, every event. I'll give you a real example. Man, I'm a huge Boarding Cardinal fan, right? O-Town, what's up? They got some great kids. They're gritty wrestlers. We love to duel those guys, right? And depending on the year, we either get our tails whipped or, maybe we come up with a close win. Last year, it came down. It was a tie. We won on criteria in their house. And, I got to give it up to the Ording folks, man. What an incredible environment. Like this little gym, right? Like the house is packed.
Let's table that too, because I want to ask you about that later on. Keep going, Coach.
They've got like couches over on one side of the mat.
Yes. Couches.
Junior Cardinals lined up all over the mats. At one point in the duel, I didn't know if it was a small dog or a child. It like ran past my leg, it was dark and the lights are down and the place is going nuts. And I'm looking at I'm looking at how the duel's shaping up, and you know we're pulling ahead, but I see their lineup coming. I'm like, well, hang on, boys, right? It's gonna come down to it. And so we go to our third string, uh, like like 68 pounder that kind of missed weight. And anyway, I'm just like, you know, he's a second year wrestler. It's kind of like, hey, here's what we got. We need to put you in at 75. He's like, in this duel? I'm like,
Yeah, right.
in this duel, right? Because their 75 pounder is a hammer. And I'm looking at the lineup, and I'm like, man, if we bump here and move here, but we can't give up a forfeit, because if we forfeit, we might lose on that criteria. And so we send our third string cat out against Acunio. You know, Acunio's the man. And shout out to Acunio, because he went out there and did his job and didn't hurt our guy and took him down a couple times and pinned him up. And that allowed us to bump, right, and pick up the wins we need. And we tie, win on criteria. But when I first went to my guy and I told him what was going down, I was like, this is going to be awesome. And he's like, I ain't doing that. And I'm like, you're not doing that. I'm like, no, man, this is what we need you to do. And I went and pulled over one of my assistants. I was like, hey, you got to get in his ear and break it down. And a couple minutes later, he came up to me and says, I'm really scared, but I'll do this. I can do this for us. I can do this for us. That's grit.
Yeah.
That's grit. So how do you teach grit? You find real life moments in the family, in the practice room, in the duel, in the tournament, and then you celebrate it. You celebrate the hell out of it. You raise that kid up and say, this is the standard. This is who we are. This is how we get down and gritty, right? The expectation wasn't go out and beat the state champ. It was go in there and fight for your life and do your best, right? Do your best in this tough environment where there's small dogs running past our feet, and like someone's grandma called me, I don't even know what, and like the place is going nuts.
So it feels like everybody has it, right? I think most people do have grit, right? But you just have to tap into when they're showing it and you recognize it and you give that positive reinforcement for them, right? So that was that moment with that wrestler for you where you recognized it and you said, hey, like that's that grit. That's where you're showing it.
You know what grit is? Grit is picking yourself up after that semifinals match and going and get the next best thing. What's the next best thing that I can do for myself, for my family, and for my community right now, right here, when it hurts so bad, right? Because I've been training my butt off, not just for 3 months, maybe for 4 years. And I just lost the semifinals match. I have an opportunity to get up and go fight and go get the next best thing. And that's damn gritty. Or I can kind of hang my head and go through the motion. Like we talk about that, right? We talk about that in November. Like this will happen to one of you. This is going to happen. And so as a family, how do we support each other in that moment? How do we raise each other up and tap into grit, right? How do we help that teammate get gritty when he needs it, when we need it, right? We rally around family. And so, yeah, you teach it. It's what Coach was asking me earlier. Like, what do? We get in the classroom and we put a slide deck up, grit, and we go through and we outline it. Here are some scenarios. Here are some opportunities to dig deep and show grit, right? You're in a big duel, right? And you're about to get teched. Do you roll over and get pinned by the returning champ, or do you get after it and just go? And guess what? It's 14-2, and you got your tail whipped, and it was damn gritty, because that major decision easily could have been a tech fall, right? And you know how wrestling works. Like 5's better than 4 and 6 is better than 5.
That's 100% it. You know, at our school, it was all just don't get pinned. You know, it's kind of how it is. And so it's like, okay, we had a lot of grit. We're going to go out there, but I'm not going to get pinned. I'm not going to, so we had this one kid bridging his life out, saved a 5 for the team. And we were hyped for it, and I think that you're onto something, right? This is the way, but now you're starting to kind of see it, right? Where we've talked about 3 of the 5 pillars, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, your family's got your back. You know that even if you lose, you can afford to give yourself the gratitude of the loss or the gratitude of the positive things that we can see in it. And that is what maybe allows you to go out there and be like a little gritty, you know, and then you start to get these moments where you're like, oh, I know how to be gritty now, you know, whereas maybe you thought about, oh, I don't know, you know, it's unknown to you until you get put in these situations. So we're talking about every day.
Yeah.
I could have used you my freshman year there, Coach. I did the semi slide. I lost in the semis and lost 3 straight. No disrespect to my coaches. I had great coaches.
Yeah.
But and being young is hard too, right? You know, the freshmen out there and stuff, it takes some losses. It takes some of those experiences to maybe learn that a little bit, right? You know, your junior, your senior year, you kind of, you might learn that through experience, you know. But
well,
100%.
maybe this is why I want to maybe transition into leadership, because this is something I was thinking to myself. It's like, well, you know, if you have a table full of freshmen, it's hard to kind of point out where some of this stuff has happened, right? So you look to the upperclassmen, you look to the leaders in the room. And I had a question, not just a question, because some people have heard your term and servant leadership and stuff. So I want to let you talk about it. But do you try to mold leadership from the very beginning? Do you try to empower everybody with leadership qualities and opportunities from the very beginning? Or do you pick out, are you seeking the leaders on the team, pick them out, try to nurse them to become the leaders of the team? Or how does that work for you? You know, with such a dominant team, I would assume, because you guys you guys won the state title with the most points ever scored by a team 4A. You broke your own record. I don't know if it was held before that, but you got 12 guys on the team that are placers that could all be leaders. So what is
most
the
of them were underclassmen too.
Yeah.
What's the room like when you're faced with the decision to get to the captain? So that's one question. And then 2, how do you discover and find the leaders? Do you find them and then mold them to being better leaders when you see it and you see others don't have it? Or are we generally just coaching leadership so everybody has it?
Well, leadership shows up, right? And so we should probably make sure we all have a shared understanding of leadership. What does it mean to lead? Okay. Because I think a lot of folks assume because I win a lot of matches, I'm a leader. Yes, right? There's good leadership and there's bad leadership, right? There's always going to be leadership in the room. Okay. I I had a kid ask me at camp something along the lines of, how are we such a great team? And I looked at him and I was like, what's your definition of great? Like, our winning percentage is high, but some of my best teams I've ever had didn't win state. Okay. Like there's levels to things in life, guys. Right. And so when we talk leadership, meeting the standard, right? That's leading by example. Okay. That's phase 1. And that's damn hard to do for a lot of people. That's hard for me, right? Like to bring it every day and meet the standard, right? Like regardless of how you feel, you're beat up, you're sick, you're tired, like those little things that make big differences. Showing up on time, always making weight, giving best effort, right? Like that's the standard. Okay. You show me a team with a room full of kids that are meeting the standard, that's an amazing team. Right there. Then you got vocal leadership, and that comes in different forms, sizes, shapes. You know, what does that look and sound like? Because, you know, for a kid to be able to look at another kid and give them that pat on the back, to give them that attaboy, not so much just because they won, but because of the effort they brought to the match, because of the fact that they're showing up early to practice and getting the mats mopped. Like, it's usually the same kids that are showing up early, getting the rooms right. And so when you hear other kids calling that out, right, that's vocal leadership. Okay. It's also holding others to the standard in a positive way, not the, hey, you stupid freshman, you know, like, no, it's like, hey, we're rolling mats. You guys are sitting over here. That's not what we do. Come join us, right? When you hear that coming from a 15 or 16-year-old to another group of teenagers, that's vocal leadership. And I think the apex, right, at the top, it's servant leadership. It's to serve others and expect nothing in return, right? When that senior throws the freshman in his car that's 3 pounds over and takes him to Thrive and spends 2 hours getting him on weight and gets him back home and then gets him to the tournament and make sure he's on weight in the morning, right? That senior really isn't getting much out of it, right? Like, okay, cool, our 6 pounder made weight, right? But how does he know the effect of those actions by serving that kid? Like, who knows? Like, that same freshman 3 years from now is possibly going to pick up his little brother or cousin and do the same for him, right? Like, this has been one of the best teams I've ever coached. And it wasn't just because we were tough and won a lot of matches. It's because I had a couple servant leaders in the room that were upperclassmen. I had some vocal leaders in the room, and I had a bunch of guys that led by example. That's uncommon, right? And so when you ask me, like, do we teach to it? Do we identify it? We don't pick captains. Like, there's that's not a thing. That leadership is an action. It's not a title, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the season for the banquet, we asked the boys, who was your captain? Who was the person that served you? Who was the person that was our standard bearer, right? Like that you want to point at and say, like, that boy led us. That is Tahoma wrestling, right? We let them pick. Okay. So, like, sending someone out for a coin flip, that doesn't indicate leadership. You know, we rotate our seniors through that. Like, that's just cool. Like, hey, we got the coin flip, shake hands. All right, let's book it up. Leadership shows up, and the boys see that, and they appreciate it, and they're the ones that call it out at the end of the year, right? So, but yeah, we teach to it, in session.
Well, you would have to. It seems like the process that the 5 pillars almost like ends in leadership. Like that's, when you're doing everything right the whole way, it's now at the end where you're looking at your term and you're like, okay, now you're faced with, I'm doing it all the right way. I'm under the mentality of coach and what he wants and what I'm doing, and I'm reflecting on it and I'm giving gratitude for it. And now the leadership calls on to you, where you're looking at these kids and now you're the one called to say, hey, come along with us and roll these mats up. Or now I had a question from one of our coaches, servant leadership or authoritative leadership. It seems like you side more toward the servant leadership side. How much experience have you had in authoritative leadership with the kids? So essentially authoritative will mean like they use their position in authority to gain those positive results. Servant leadership is you lead by example, right? So if you're taking that kid and then people are seeing that, you're not asking for any following from that, but inherently people are following that leader by example. So do you think both are good, or do you think that, well, I mean, all leadership is good, but it sounds like servant leadership.
I disagree. All leadership is not good.
Right. You mentioned that. Right. Not all leadership is good, right? You can
Some
have
of the best wrestlers I ever coached were really negative influences. You could be wicked tough and fast and athletic and have not figured out how to be a good person yet. Right. But that's true in life, in every organization, in every team, and in everything we do. Right. And good and bad are fluid. Right. What's the time of day, month? We are constantly faced with daily decisions, and I could make really good decisions for an extended period of time and have a slide. That's life. Right. Fortunately, we've come up with a way to talk about a standard that is a way back to the light, right? It's like this is what it is. Let's meet the standard and go from there, right? There's above the line decisions and below the line decisions. And I heard something really interesting at camp a couple of days ago from Andrew Alvarez, right? National champion out of Colorado. He took an Olympic redshirt year. and is going back to Colorado. And I was fascinated by what he said, in that, you know, he came up short the season before he won his national title, and decided to go all in and make these lifestyle changes, right? And as I'm listening to him talk, it's like every little decision in the day is an opportunity to level up and armor yourself to win. Did I get to bed on time like I planned? Did I get the homework assignment done? Did I get my extra run in? Did I get the dishes done that I was supposed to do? Every one of those things is a win, right? And when you start stacking up all those wins, it armors you. It armors you mentally, it armors you physically. Like you walk into the center circle with this belief that I have done it right, and I've put myself in position to let it fly. Let the chips fall where they may, and if it goes my way, awesome. If it doesn't, hey, I'm no lesser for the process. You know what I mean? So like, I, yeah, authoritarian versus servant leadership. I don't know. Like I'm in charge, right? Like when things go bad, it's my fault. Like that's me. I got to own that. Whether I did the thing or not, whether it was my action, I am the head coach of Tahoma High School and the leader of this program. And there will be times where I have to look at someone and say, you need to do this. Don't do this, right? Like that, to me, that's authoritarian. That's being direct. That's a directive versus trying to show up early, trying to give best effort, right? Like that's lead by example. To serve others though, right? I don't know, from a coach's standpoint, you know, like an action from a coach, it's out of season. Whether the kid, you know, passes the class or not, he's still going to be eligible in 4 months. But am I still checking his grades? Am I still helping him find a tutor? Am I still rolling in at lunchtime to sit next to him and make sure his algebra was done? I don't know that it really benefits the team at that point, because again, come November, he's going to be eligible, but he needs that, right? So that, for me, that's an example of serving someone else. You know, the alumni that's 5-6 years out of the program and calls you up and needs something, needs a letter of rec, needs to meet you for a cup of coffee. Man, I got 5 kids, 3 dogs, 2 cats, and 5 chickens and a wife, right? Like the chore list goes on and on. But Kirsten gets it. Like we committed to this way of life 18 years ago. Like literally at the dinner table, pregnant with our first, and I'm going to wrestling camps, and I'm going to, you know, schoolboy duels and a Fargo, and like, and we're just starting to take off. When I say take off, like our teams are starting to have some success, wins and loss wise, but we're starting to see the effects on our community. And we made a choice a long time ago. I'm going to do this. We are going to do this. Kirsten and I, Kirsten Feist, like she is my everything. And we committed to each other that I'm going to coach wrestling, but really what I'm going to do is go out and try to be a standard bearer for this program. And she's going to stay home and take care of us. She's going to tend to the children, and she knows when I come home, I'm hers. And while I'm away, she's mine. But this is how we serve God, right? This is how we affect change in our community, because you cannot affect change without significant, important relationships. And you cannot create significant, important relationships and serve others if you don't spend time with them. Yeah. And 3 months out of the year is not enough time to affect the change that our community needs and deserves. Yeah. So it starts with her. It starts with our bond and our commitment to each other, but most importantly, our commitment to the families of Maple Valley. This is where we call home. And, you know, we're big fans of what's in our locus of control, right? I can't affect what's happening in New York and in China. And like, you know what? I probably can't even really change what's happening over in Spokane. But Kirsten and I have the ability to affect positive change in the children's hearts of Maple Valley. And that's why our house is open. That's why if I get a call at 5 o'clock, Coach, can we come over and use the barn to get a training session in? Coach, I need to talk to you. Can I come over? Hey, we need a place to stay. Like whatever that thing is for our community, for our children, that's what we want to be, right?
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
That's awesome. And
we're raising our family here. I've
Yeah.
got, my son's home from Little Rock, Arkansas, for the summer, and he brings his 21-year-old girlfriend with him, and my 18-year-old son is coming home from Center Circle camp, and his girlfriend's coming over to hang out, and my incoming freshman daughter's best friends over. When I get home, they train together, and then we got the little Malibu that's 9 and her buddy down the road, and like the house is filled with children and young adults constantly. And that's what we want. We're going to go to them as a team, but in essence, what we really want is them to come to us, to our open house, to our mat room when they need something, to our kitchen table to talk life and to have a hot plate. That's what it is, man. That's how we serve not just this community. That's how we serve God.
And that's so real quick, I think Sam does have to leave. I'm gonna go ahead and continue with you, Coach, because you were on fire here, and I got some questions.
Let me pipe in here for a minute because I don't have to leave quite yet. I got like a minute or two here.
In case Sam does leave,
yeah, Matt's gonna keep us rolling here, Coach. You've absolutely knocked this out of the park. I knew you would. I've been around you my entire wrestling career. Specifically in high school, just kind of watching you. I wrestled a Tahoma guy in the state finals, Kevin Tao, my sophomore year, and he got the best of me. I fell up short, but I just want to say this. For one, I came across a lot of great wrestling coaches in my career. Andy Cook, Justin Springer, my brother, Rob Zabel, amazing coaches. If there was one coach that I always wanted to wrestle for, it would have been you. I'm telling you right now. And you solidified the fact for that to be today. So thank you so much for bringing all this to the table and just, sharing your experiences. It's truly valuable, not just, for me and Matt or just, just having this chat with you, but just for everybody to look back on this or, yeah, for sure, man. Like this is, it's so valuable for people to hear from you and the things that you've been doing and not just the Maple Valley community. I know you're very centric in that community and you're doing a fantastic job, but it does go farther. It really does. Cause that's what this podcast is for, is to reach out to other communities, to reach out to the entire state, and really elevate the state. That's our mission on this podcast, is to grow this sport within the state. So you're doing a fantastic job. I got one fun question before I leave.
And real quick, don't think I don't remember you, dude. I remember when the Panthers were coming up, and you guys got like these brothers that moved from the Midwest, and the pair, like you guys had a thing going. I don't know what tournament we went and dueled you guys, and we kept getting like overhook, collar tie here, and like give a little shimmy this way, and all of a sudden we're getting thrown on our head and like claw ride roll. I'm like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah,
who are the Panthers?
Yeah, we had a squad back then. It was fun, man. Snohomish was awesome, and we had some good battles with you guys, and that's fun, man. Competing in iron sharpens iron. It's always fun, and I always looked up to you. It was such a fun experience. But I got one question right before I pop off here. I'm gonna let Matt wrap this up, and you guys can go as long as you want, seriously, because this is so much fun. The Feist Train T-shirts. Are we bringing these back or not? Because I haven't seen them in years, and there's wrestlers rolling around with them, walking around with them, and I thought it was the coolest thing ever. I was like, I'm not Feist trained, but I want one of those, and now I want one because I'm not affiliated to any program whatsoever. I'm affiliated to this podcast and this account. I'm not anybody's affiliation whatsoever. I want a Feist trained T-shirt. Can we bring those back?
We took them out of stock a few years back. I think the last ones we had was when we took a group a few years ago to Fargo. I actually had a picture come up on my feed with Ivy Kraft. She All-American, that year, her senior year. She was out of Kentwood, and Michael Gasper, and there's a couple kids I took back there. I think that was the last time we had some printed. There's still a couple floating around. Like I was was at dinner out in Maple
Oh
Valley.
no, Sam, you've started a war here.
Yes, no, we're bringing him back. I know Feist he comes off as and he is a very humble guy, and you can tell throughout this entire podcast he's a very servant leader, like we've been talking about. But we want the Feist Rain t-shirts back. I want one.
You got to talk to Boomtown. He's our
Boomtown
guy, right? Boomers. He might bring him back. I don't know. Like
maybe a limited run just for the podcast. Maybe we could raise some money for something.
It used to be we had the Feist train, like you qualify for the state tournament and you got one, and then the club season we had one, but it was also our homeboy shirt. Feist is my homeboy, and picture of me was messed up here in the front. Like, and I'm telling you, a few years back I'm at dinner and I see some like old lady wearing a shirt with my picture on it, and I'm like, Did your grandson wrestle for Tahoma? And she got it at the Goodwill. So like, I'm okay. I'm done. I'm out. Like I just can't anymore.
No, we got to bring him back. I'll talk to Boomer. I got your phone number from Boomer. So,
here we go.
So, and we got people rolling in with the comments right now.
We're
bringing him back.
Mom wants one. How did Mom not end up with one?
I'm telling you, I'm not the gear guy, right? Like, you got to have good people.
Hey, everybody plays their roles, right?
Yeah, that takes care of things. Boomer takes care of, like, I don't know, 800 things, gear being one of them. So
nice.
And he's pretty wicked with design. So he snapped some funky picture of me. Next thing I know, we got a t-shirt. I'm like, wait a minute. What the hell's going on?
Yeah. I didn't sign off on this. Well, Sam, if you do have to hop off, I'm gonna
keep going until the wife and kids walk in the door. Yeah. Let's keep.
All right, Coach. I got the next thing I want to talk about is I looking on your Tahoma High School page, which it's pretty awesome. You guys are pretty organized there. I don't know who runs that, but it's really awesome. Yeah. So here we go again. We need to get Boomer on here, figure out how he can teach everybody to do that. But down there, you got your previous posters that I think you guys had. I want to talk about a couple of these sayings. So a single stick is weak, but a bundle is strong. It seems like a saying or like a motivational, saying kind of leads the team a little bit per year. So we choose the Tahoma way as a lifestyle, not because it's easy, but because it's difficult. We believe that it is important to do hard things. We choose the Tahoma way because the standards and expectations will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills, because that challenge is one that we are willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one in which we intend to win. Can you kind of speak about some of these I guess sayings that we have? Another one here: on the plains of hesitation lie the blackened bones of countless millions who at the dawn of victory lay down to rest and in resting died. So
Stevens, former president of the United States.
Okay, nice. So are these ones that have just touched you over time, or are these things that you've picked out and now we're trying to kind of fortify the foundation here with these things we always call back to?
Third point documents are important, right? Visuals, slogans, like you need to be able to point to something and reference it, but not just reference it, teach to it. And so, you talk about, we actually used to have a plaque on the wall with a bear's skull on it. Like literally one of our shop teachers shot a bear in his backyard that was charging the house, gave us the skull from the head. We slapped it up on a black Washington State cutout, like, piece of wood, and had that Plains of Hesitations quote on it. And it was fun, but it was also like, hey, we got to get after it. Right. And when you have to identify what does it mean, well, you point to the slogan and have a conversation about it. Right. Like there is no hesitation. It's now we need it. Right. We got to keep moving forward. So that'd be an example of using that slogan when practice is hard. When
Coach is getting blown up here.
Yeah, I'm going to turn that off. Sorry.
It's like time to come home, Coach. Another thing is you've spoken a lot of
the chickens are laying eggs.
Chickens, yeah. I forgot about the chickens are at the house.
No, it's one of my dads wanting to know when we're training in the barn.
There you
Nice.
go. Hey, don't you know I'm on a podcast? Come join us right now. Send the link. Here's another thing is you've spoken a lot about your ways and philosophies. I'm wondering, do you have somebody that coaches you still 20 years in? I mean, do you have a mentor you still look up to? And what's that like as a coach who seemingly has, accomplished a lot? I mean, once you get to the top of the mountain here, it seems like you are the type of person that still seeks out being mentored or still continues to seek out great knowledge. I mean, who's giving you that nowadays?
Mike Mariansky. Yeah, Mike's the former superintendent of the Tahoma School District, and in my first year in teaching, I started working with this kid we had. He was a senior, made it to the state the year before, and so we're running on the track and lifting preseason and talking about getting ready. And we get done with the season. I didn't realize at the time, but it was the superintendent's son, who was a huge wrestling fan and came to all our duels. And he started showing up in my classroom and watching me teach. And he's mentored me along the way in my career, from teacher to a dean to a vice principal to the associate principal at the largest high school in the state. And when he retired 5 years ago, he started doing some contracting work around the state, going to school districts and speaking about leadership and about structures and systems. And I still have stuff written all over my board, questions that he put to me like, is it worth it and can you do it? Right? Because if you can't answer question one affirmatively, is it worth it? Stop there. But if it's worth it, you next have to ask yourself, can you do it? And if you can, proceed. If you cannot, assess where you're at, remove the barrier, and then move forward. So when he retired, we just kept staying in touch. And during the pandemic, I think I already touched on this. I was going through a lot of hard, and I found my way back. Where did you get the back?
I'm trying to find the picture, Coach.
You got the Feist as my homeboy up. Okay.
Yeah, I'm trying my best to kind of upload it fine, but I got it a little bit here. Your picture's in the back here.
So anyways, I ran into Mike occasionally at church, and I reached out to him over the pandemic because I found myself drawn back to the church. And I grew up going to Catholic school, lots of different Catholic schools. And as an adult, really wasn't finding my way back there until, the pandemic, when it got really hard. And, I was searching for a lot of answers. And we started communicating more. And I just says, hey, I really want to talk to you. And so he started coming in, didn't charge the school district, and we'd meet like twice a month and talk about leadership. And he'd ask me really hard questions and kind of make me twist in my chair and push me. One of the favorite, I don't know if it's my favorite, one thing he'd say to me all the time is, get out of the weeds, right? You're in leadership, get out of the weeds, get up on the balcony, get the 10,000-foot view. You have to see what's going on, right? You gotta put other people in position to do what they do well and then support them. Like, that's an example of the way he mentored me. And guys, like, school administration, teaching and coaching, there's so much carryover and flow. Like whether you're teaching English or math, or you're teaching a kid how to do a high crotch, right? Like good teaching is good teaching. And then when you go beyond that, and it's like, okay, so you're trying to run an organization, a business, a school, like, hey, I'm trying to not just coach a team, I'm trying to run a program, right? I'm trying to put structures in place that are lasting, and the right people doing the right thing with shared vision and common understanding, moving in the same direction. It's easy until you start trying to do it. And that's why there's so much adjustment. But you're right, you need good people around you to check you, to advise you. Boomtown's one of my other advisors. He's one of, I don't have a lot of friends, which is ironic because I am a very good in social situations, but I'm antisocial. I go to practice and I go to work and I hang out at the compound. Yeah. And if you come to me, you're in the circle. Besides that, so I don't have
your life.
Are we in the circle now? Can we come to the barn?
You're welcome to come over anytime. We'll get in the room. Some of the boys will probably stop by. We can get a spar. It'll be fun. Maybe we can work some cross wrist tilts. I've been on that for a little bit. Trying to figure a couple things
I'd
out.
love that. I'd love that so much.
Bring a couple kids and come down. Like there's Tahoma High School. In the spring we got Bear Claw Wrestling Club, but every other time it's Rooster Savage, baby.
Yeah. So Trevor and I were actually we drove down to. So Trevor's our back room guy right now. He's on with us, Trevor Mills, and Todd Beamer High School. Yeah.
His coach was my college coach, Brett Lucas.
Nice.
And mentor.
We brought Trev to the front cam. Trev's here. He's hanging out. So, he said his coach was your college coach. Is that what you said? Yeah. Awesome. Well, Trev, I'll bring you back to the back again. Sorry.
He's managing our comments. He's helping out with the background. So he found the Feist is my homeboy T-shirt.
Yeah, he found it because he always wanted one as well. He had a picture stored in his phone for the one great moment. Coach, I want to talk about plateaus a little bit, and I'm sure when you're at a pretty high level, I want to talk about how often do you think about plateauing? I know you guys do a lot of tough tournaments. So in seasons, with respects to in season now, talking about the Tahoma team, we want to plateau at state, right? We want to win a state title. You want to be able to perform your best there. Do you give, or how much thought do you give into your schedule planning as the season goes in? I know Penn State is famous for going, they call it a really crappy tournament right away because they just want to send, what do you got here?
Breaking news.
Is this your schedule?
That's the schedule, brother.
So how much thought do you give into plateauing at the proper time? You know, are you trying to hit? I talked to another coach at the Edmonds Woodway Summer Duels, and they mentioned, hey, you know, we took him to a real tough tournament in the middle of the season, and then thought that we could get back up once we kind of came down, and then found out it was a little tougher to get back up because of how that tournament went for them during the middle of the season. So describe a little bit of that to me, coach speak. We're now kind of speaking coach to coach. And how do you monitor getting your kids to plateau at the end of the year?
You know, I'm constantly trying to change not just our schedule, but our system of training. And it really depends on what you have in the room, right? Like, you know, do you have a bunch of veteran club kids that are hitting their high school practices and then going and picking up 2-3 club practices a week, right? Do you have a ton of brand new kids in the lineup that are just trying to figure out how to get their headgear on right still? Like it really depends on the makeup of the lineup. I really try to look at 3 squads. We go blue, gold, white, and we try to set up a tournament schedule for each level. Like our blue team, you know, we're going to go to Tri-State. We're going to go to the Clash in Wisconsin. You know, we go to the Viking Invite. We try to pick up high-level competition. I try to set up a schedule that every kid's going to lose, right? Like the goal isn't to go undefeated as a coach, right? I've got kids that have done it. You know, Crew Lambro went undefeated last year and ran the gauntlet. We had a tough schedule. He's a dog. I mean, I tried to get him a loss, just didn't happen, right?
We missed him at national duels. We talked about
we gave him a hard time.
We missed him at national duels, but yeah.
He's a folk style specialist. That kid loves to ride, man.
Yeah.
He's tough on top, you know? So I get it though. But, you know, so really it depends on which team are you talking about with us, because I've got a gold team that, you know, I guess you'd say your JV team, right? Well, we're bringing 4 to 6 JV kids to state through the regionals consistently. And that's because, like, when I'm taking blue to open the season up in Edmonds Woodway at a grinder, which is a great opener, I'm sending gold to Sumner duels to book it up with other varsity teams, you know, and they get hammered, right? But they need that so they understand the level of competition, right? So they can close those gaps along the way. And then with our white team, you know, I'm a first, second year wrestler. We're going to get them to the round robins. We're going to get them the right experience, have a good time, learn something, so we retain them, right? We want them. They got to have an opportunity to compete too. And you know how it is with the duel. Like you show up and maybe the other team has 3 holes in the lineup, and they're not going to have but half a JV squad. And it's like,
Right.
how do you get that C team kid that has potential some actual matches? So we really try to set up a weekend schedule where we might be going 3 different places on a Saturday, you know.
Which I mean, that's what we're thinking about this year, because, you know, but then we stop ourselves and we take a step back. You guys have a real big support system of assistant coaches and stuff like that. You know, as we're trying to build our team, we kind of realize, oh shoot, we'd love to do a blue, gold, and white team, but now we only got 2 assistant coaches. We would love to take everybody here. We got to start bonding with the kids here. So it just makes it really tough. And then also we're kind of battling with deciding if our, you know, how tough do we take our, you know, first year kids that we think are really good, but is it more important? And maybe you can help me answer this. How important are those wins? I mean, I guess if we're celebrating small wins along the way, maybe those match wins don't become so important, but, you know, we've got our coaching staff battled with, well, we got a C teamer that we can see in the state tournament placing in 2 years. Do we want to take them to JV matches, or like you said, your white team or your next team, your JV squad, you're taking them to varsity tournaments? They're going to lose, like you mentioned, but they need to understand that gap differential to the big dogs or to your varsity squad. What would you like think about a freshman who, you know, maybe they are still first, second year wrestler, but man, they're a dog? You know, would you recommend still taking them to those round robins, getting those wins under their belt for that first year? Or do you think it'd be nice? I know every kid's different, but to maybe move into that tough competition, even though they might lose every match, you know?
That dog, if he's truly a dog, the loss isn't going to break him, right? So I think he needs both. You know, it's the same thing in the practice room. You got to have 3 levels, right? You got to have that person that's going to whip you. You got to have that person you're going head to head with, and it's back and forth, and you got to be able to whip somebody, you know. And the same can be said for competition. You got to find those spots for the newer kids that are coming in where they're getting the win. They may be losing overtime, maybe winning it, and they're just getting throttled, right? Because how do you aspire to the highest level if you haven't not only seen it but felt it, right? Like what is this thing I'm trying to do? And if you're taking a dog to the round robin and he's just blowing through everyone, don't give him that false bravado that, oh, that's just the way it's going to be. No, it is not. It is not. But again, it goes back to, you got to know the kid. You got to know their spirit. You got to know their resilience. You got to know what kind of grit they have. And I think the other piece too is being real clear in your communication to the team. Like, hey, here's the assignment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, here's why you're going here. Here's why you're going there. Here's what you can expect, right? Here's the standard, right? And just make sure everyone involved understands what the process is and what the outcome is that we're looking for, because it's a journey, right? I keep throwing cliches at you, but I'm not just talking November to February. Like, if you want that dog at the C team level that's a freshman, like in the finals, right, or placing as a senior, you got to help them see that vision, and you got to help them prepare for the losses, and the wins are going to come along the way. And so just being, you know, I open every year with a talk, like I think all teams do, you know, come in, meet the coach. Hey, here's how challenges work. Here's our schedule. But really getting clear, that might be one of the most important meetings of the year, right? Because you got that opportunity for that first impression for the new family of like, hey, here's who we are. Here's what we stand for. Here's how I'm going to serve your child, right? Here's the system that I have in place. And if there's things that aren't there that they want, what a great opportunity to bring people into the family. Because you'd mentioned, you know, going to 3 different tournaments and we got these assistants. We don't do it without an amazing booster club. Right now it's led by my guy, Telly Lambro, big shout out, that is organized, that is bringing parents in, like, and you got to help them understand, like, why would I want to give time to this Everett wrestling thing? Why to Homer wrestling? Like, why do I want to, besides going and sitting and watching the duel? Well, it's because, like, hey, we want to send the team, not just 1 team, but 3 teams with a tournament cooler. And we need to raise some funds to do that. We need to collect some donations. Hey, we want to make sure your son wrestles too, but we only have this much budget from the school. And so here's the goal this year, because if we can reach this, here's what we're going to be able to do, right? And so now we've got transportation to these other events. We've got entrance fees. We've got, money for the additional uniforms, like whatever the thing is that you're trying to do, you have to, one, have a plan, but probably more importantly, be ready to communicate it to the community, right? Because people want to get behind something, but how do you get behind it if you don't know what it is or what it's about, right?
Yeah, that's one of those tabled questions that I had for you, Coach Feist, because I went to regionals at your guys' school last year, which is like, if you guys haven't been to Homa High School, it might be the nicest in the state. I don't know what.
Greatest high school in the world.
Oh my gosh, it is absolutely beautiful. Whatever the school board's doing out there, what bond ever got passed, I don't know what happened, but you guys have a beautiful school, beautiful practice room, beautiful gym. It was an awesome host site, and you guys did a great job of hosting that tournament. It was fantastic. Now, you guys had a lot of people in the fans in the stands with the pom poms and everything. And I know a lot of that has to do with the rich history of Tahoma, right? You got alumni, you have parents and people coming in and cheering your team on. But what advice do you have for other teams, other programs out there to boost your fan base a little bit? Because I think that's kind of something that wrestling lacks a little bit, as opposed to like football and basketball. You got student sections and all that. How do you get more people out there to be cheering on your team?
Like, my tactical answer: be a master communicator.
Get
your schedule out, get your posters out, get Facebook Live going at the duel so grandma in Minnesota can watch it. Find ways to recognize your athletes, because these athletes have parents and grandparents and neighbors, and like, stay in touch with the people that have been with you. Like, I've got the Boobins, right? Like Johnny Boobin was a state champ for me years ago. I don't even know. Like, I think it was the only high school.
He was a little older than, or a little younger than me. Yeah, I think he was graduated in like 2010, 2011.
Okay, yeah,
Great
right.
Yeah.
Like, the only tournament he ever won was state. But I bring that up because he started wrestling in middle school. His parents got involved, and that's when our booster club really started taking off. And it wasn't just because they loved seeing their son have fun and do well in wrestling. It was because we had open conversations about what our staff was trying to do for this community, what our staff was trying to do for their child and his friends. And like, we stayed in contact with them, and they come back to duels to watch it. They volunteered our freestyle tournaments. They just donated, money so we could take kids to camp. Like when you build something, like, you don't do it alone. And as these parents cycle out and move on, you don't have to lose them, right? Like, whether it's a monthly email, or you make sure they have your website link, or you send out the info on who's going to state. Finding ways to stay in contact with your community. Okay. Because once they see who you are and what you're about, and they realize that you have this set of shared core values, they're going to support the hell out of you. Most people will, right? That's what it is. When you run into these like-minded people that know that it's more than just, we're going to try to win state again, right? It can't just be about that. They want to be a part of that. And so I think that's how we keep the stands filled. We keep current parents coming in to support, but we've got alumni, we got teachers, we got kids from the school. Like you want to make it an event. You want to, the first 10 kids come, or 20 kids get a T-shirt, or we're going to do a raffle. Like, you find the gimmick thing that the average high school kid want to come in and have fun. You play music, like whatever. Maybe you get DJ Automatic to come and do the duel. But I think most importantly,
shameless auto plug there. We love the guy.
Hey, Coach, I got to run. My kids, my whippersnappers are about to run in the door here and cause chaos. But thank you so much for coming on. I'm going to let Matt wrap this up for you guys. You guys go as long as you want. Fantastic stuff, man. You're a legend. I feel like you're, I don't know. Nick Saban is what comes to mind. You're like the Nick Saban of Washington wrestling right now. I know you don't want to say it, but yeah, you're a legend, and we just appreciate you, and I appreciate you truly.
I appreciate you having me on and having a chance to talk about things that matter. Right? I love wrestling, but I want to affect change in young men's lives. Right? And that's what it is.
That's awesome,
well, Coach,
man. Hey,
we're 2 hours in. Bye-bye, Sam. We'll see you later.
see you
See you
guys. See you,
soon.
Coach.
Coach, we're 2 hours in. Do you have a little bit more time? I mean, this is kind of for the long form podcast lovers. If you're a diehard or you want to pick the brain here of Coach Feist, we'll probably hang out for just a little bit longer. I don't need to take up as much time as you're allowing me here, but thank you again for coming on. But so what about parents? We talked about that. So how do we keep an open mind with some of these parents? I know you may get the ever casual overbearing parent, but what role do you think the parents play in the development of their athletes? And then I know you said open line of communication, and we definitely understand the communication part, but specifically dealing with some of these parents, what do you think is important, on a general level to kind of say to some of these parents to help get their kid where, they want them to be, where the kid wants them to be, where you want them to be? We've dealt with the overbearing parent every now and then, and it's really tough to go and have the conversation with some of these parents where it's like, hey, maybe we need you to step back a little bit. You're kind of putting a wrench in between things. Where do you think is a nice zone with a parent and their student, and then with you as a coach?
That's a good question, but I think each program, each team, it's going to be different. How I'd answer it now is very different than how I would answer it 15 years ago, right? Like now, like I said, I'm raising my family in this community, right? Like my kid's out on a Friday night with 3 or 4 of his buddies on the team, right? Which means that's I don't know, 6 to 8 parents that my kid is at their house at some point eating their cereal and playing Xbox in their basement and vice versa. So, I'm blessed in that I've been here over 20 years and a lot of these parents are friends, right? Not saying that I don't like or don't have friendships with other parents, but eat at my house, right? Like go out and do things together. I think regardless if you know them well or if they're new to the program, just being really clear on what the expectation is for everyone involved and being consistent as you can with it. And I'm no expert, right? When I say that, I mean, I've been doing it for a long time and I make mistakes and I learn from it and I move forward. And I think the key is recognizing that parents are probably the most important structure. They're the most important structure in that kid's life. They live with them. They're raising them. They love them. And what I found is, for the most part, except for a very small few, all the things that they want for their child, that they need, that they're asking for, come from a place of love and wanting their child to be successful. And whether I agree or disagree with what they need, how they should get it, like when it's connected to our wrestling room, if I can get it for them and it's what we do and it's part of the standard, I'm going to do that. And I need that information. I need to know what's the best way to communicate with that kid, because maybe I think I do, but they're going to know. Who knows their kids better than the parents, right? But I'm fortunate that I feel like I have a pretty good open relationship with all of my parents. And whether it's man, this is going so well and I just wanted to share with you how proud I am of your child, or God, this is really tough, but we need to fix this. We can have those conversations. If a parent is unhappy with an aspect of the program, with maybe there's a misunderstanding, maybe they understand it completely and they're unhappy with something, I'm gonna meet with them, right? Like, we're gonna sit down, we're gonna have a conversation, and the focus has got to be about that child, right? What's best for that kid? How do we help that kid develop, not just as a wrestler, but as a person? And if I can make an adjustment, I'm going to do that. If I'm in a space that I can give advice, because again, though I'm no expert, I'm also a parent and I've been coaching for a long time. I'm comfortable enough sharing that input, so it's really going to be different program by program, depending on the relationships that are built and, the expectation in the program.
Yeah. And I think it's also important to do what you say you're going to do. You know, if you come in and you lay out the lines, like, here's exactly what I'm going to do, you know, and then the parents, they buy into you and they buy into what you're saying, but then you start to kind of move back on some of those things. I think it's important for a coach to understand that, you know, especially when you have the development of these young boys and girls, you know, in your hands, it's important to make sure that you're the guy that says that you're going to do what you're going to do. You know, false promises, false hopes, that can destroy a relationship quicker than a lot of things. And coach, we, you know, in our 2 hours here, we've talked a lot about a lot of successes that you and the team have had. I'd love to maybe kind of hit against the grain here. Can we talk about a time where, you know, maybe you've had a wrestler all 4 years, a successful wrestler, but the relationship, maybe the kid was against the grain the entire time, didn't like to listen to a lot about it, didn't like to practice a lot of the stuff that we said, but you know, he's a kid that's winning in the program, he has wins on the mat. Can you describe a situation where that may have happened to you and how you as a good coach have been able to rein in some, you know, some of that if you've had it before, and maybe share a success story? I know there's coaches out there that are 2 hours into this podcast that would love to hear how to deal with some of that.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we have had a couple situations like that, and even smaller number of times where we had to part ways and let someone go. You know, it was a while back. You know, I had a real tough kid, state placer, and he was a good boy, but you know, just making some bad decisions that ultimately weren't in line with our standards. And you know, he's a state placer, and we're coming back. And I think it was one of those years where we were right in line for a trophy, ended up like 5th. Last tournament of the year we were hosting, and we'd already had multiple conversations with parents and student about, you know, here's the standard, here's how it wasn't met, you know, you're going to have to sit an event if this happens again. And unfortunately it happened again, you know. We had to sit him, and the next event was the league tournament, and that was hard, you know. And as a younger coach, I was struggling with it for the wrong reasons, because I knew we were in the run for a trophy. You know, we hadn't had a lot of them in the case at that time, and at the end of the day, I had to fall back to, you know, we were real clear with the team around our standard of behavior and how we carry ourselves, and the things that were happening were not just not meeting our standard, but we're against the school rules. Like you can't do this, right? You're going to be disciplined, and that was tough. That was really hard, you know. And we had to have I had to have some hard conversations with parents about that, and some hard conversations with my AD, and ultimately it's a choice that we stuck by, but it's helped me through the years to hold the standard, because it's more than about bringing home that trophy.
Yeah, and then sometimes you get a kid that may go against the grain, and you know, the standards are set in place and we have to live by them, you know, and if we can't, then it starts to crumble all over the place, you know. And if we let one kid, you know, come in and understand that he's not a part of the, you know, he doesn't have to follow the standards, you know, we can't have standards if we're not abiding by them, you know. And if we don't abide by them with one kid, then every kid feels like they can get that way. And
it's a quick way to erode culture, you know, and create a negative, toxic culture, right? And so you just have to be really proactive and really consistent, and have open dialogue, and don't wait, right? Like it's happening, and we're 3 months into it, and now we're addressing it. Like it's got to be, you know, just like you got to praise them up and point out grit when you see it, and effort, and examples of athletes treating each other like family. You got to identify when it's not happening and when it's going against the grain, and reteach the expectation, and move forward from there.
And then I've got just a couple questions left here for you. Again, thank you so much. So we got a big, 4A is got some teams coming into it, some real tough kids coming into 4A. 4A is going to be a dogfight, as it always is. But this year with the reclassification, it looks like we've got a lot coming in. So who do you think? Have you had your eyes on it? Number one. Number two is, who do you think we're going to surprise you guys, or at least coming in here are going to be tough? I would have to say Meade's going to be one of those teams.
Phil McLean's the GOAT, absolute GOAT. Phil's got it going on and has for years. And when I say he's got it going on, he has a great program with sound structures. His assistant is not only an ex-college athlete, but his son. And you have a lot of people that want to be part of what he's built. He's older than I am. I've been doing it for a long time, right? And I'm older than Dirk, so I don't know what that says about Phil. But he's not only one of the few remaining high school head coaches in the state that actually wrestled in college, but he's an individual that cares more about the kids and the culture, and that they're good humans. He's one of the best, and that's why his teams are so tough. Like when you put sound technique and a deep understanding of the sport and the process with high moral standards and values and strong communication, watch out, right? And that's me, man. Like I've been battling with Phil since I started this thing. And they're always tough. So yeah, Meade hands down, they're the ones to chase down. We're coming for you, Phil.
Okay, so that's good to know that you think, even though they're coming up to you as the returning state champs, you're coming after them. So that's something, and we'd love to have Phil here on the program too. And Sam's now commenting as a viewer, Phil's a legend, and he is. And we've been talking about Meade and what they're going to do. I mean, they scored an obnoxious amount of points as a team last year at 3A, and they had a kid, and even you guys, I mean, at 4A, the competition is admittedly a little tougher at some weight classes for sure. But to see that team going in, there's anybody else on your list as a surprise team coming into 4A?
I've been doing this for a long time, and I'm a stat stalker. I'm not surprised by any of it.
Okay, that's kind of what I was wondering, because sometimes you get those type of coaches that do follow that stuff and is a stat stalker, so everything that's coming after you, and you're obviously the top dog, so they're coming right after you.
They know where to find us.
That's great.
We post our tournament schedule, right? Like, I mean, we're not running from anybody, but I got a lot of respect for Meade. I got a lot of respect for a lot of these programs out there that are putting in the time. Like I said, we love O-Town. We're always trying to dual Ording. Jody Coleman is amazing. Been doing a great job down there for years. I love to compete with his team. There's some really good teams out there, man. And I consistently find that they're led by competent, caring men, right? And that's who we want to compete with, because they're going to bring the best every time.
Yep. And so I got two questions left for you here, and then we'll wrap this up. And these are kind of future-based questions, but one is, so you're at the top of the spear, obviously the conversations that you're having with, people, and these conversations are a little bit higher level than some teams that are maybe on their way, but what do you think we can do as a state to get a D1 program back in Washington? I mean, does it take a high level coach like a Phil or something to leave a team like Meade and start up a program? Does it take a young, we see the clubs popping up, from former wrestlers and stuff like that. So what do you think we could be doing to develop a D1 team back in Washington State?
I think we need to continue to champion and support women's wrestling and grow that. I think we're going to have to come to the table with a men's and a women's team, so we can equal out like, Title IX, right? Like they got to have the numbers right. I've seen efforts over the years. I think we need a CEO-minded former wrestler that's passionate about it, that's going to help lead the charge, because we need to be unified, and not just in our conversations and our goals, but in our fundraising, in our advocacy. And it is key. I don't have the answers to how. Hope is not a good strategy. We can't just hope a program comes back. We got to find the right people that are motivated to make it happen and really identify what the barriers are so we can collectively try to remove them. But, you want to see Washington wrestling elevate. And again, it goes back to like, what's your definition of good? What's your definition of great? Like our numbers or participation are rising. Hey, that's awesome. Right. But if we want to see a product that results in more kids going on and wrestling in college, more kids All-American at Fargo, we have to have college programs back in the state, because, too many of our young men are leaving to go pursue their wrestling dreams because there's nowhere else for them. So they're down in Oregon, they're down in Hofstra, they're in Illinois, they're across the country. And you know how it is, man. You find a nice lady and marry her, you're most likely settling down next to her mom. So they don't always come back. And I really do believe, to get us to that next level, to level up, we got to get a program back in the state, Division I level, D2, D3, all of them. Like I don't even say D1. We just need wrestling programs. I'll start with that. Like, give me a JUCO school, right? And we'll start producing some tough ass JUCO wrestlers that want to come back and coach and teach and mentor and give back. D1's the apex. I would love it. I would love to see something at Eastern, at Gonzaga, at UW, wherever, right? But I'm a little bit selfish, and what I mean by that, I have only so much capacity and so much time. I got a huge family, and I pour everything I have into Maple Valley, right? So when someone comes to me with an ask and I can do it, I will. But I have to stay focused on my immediate community and the needs of my children, and that's where I'm at.
Yeah. Well, Coach, this will be our last question. We're 2 hours and 15 minutes in for you long podcast listeners, and I'm sure we can continue to go more and more because you always listen back and you kind of figure out some questions you wish you could have asked. But you've been around the sport for a long time. I mean, since you placed it in 1995 all the way here, we're coming up on 2025. I mean, so almost 30 years for you. The sport has evolved, pretty great, greatly or massively. And we just had the new rules change. I think it's for the better completely. I would assume there's not a coach out there that can, argue with a single point of contact inbounds allows you to be inbounds, 3-point takedowns, right? Where do you see the sport evolving? Where do you put, wave the flag as a coach to say, okay, it's getting beyond me now? Do you see the sport evolving in a way of technique, or do you think that maybe it evolves in the participation? That's how I would like to see it evolve, is the participation side. I think the girls are really doing a great job, but we still have, 9 girls on our team or 10 girls. I'd love to see that in the 40s. At what point do you see, or how do you see the sport evolving as you continue on your next 30 years, I guess?
Yeah, I think you're spot on. Let's continue to grow women's wrestling, get our numbers up. And, I don't know where to start to make it happen. I'd love to see our women wrestling freestyle. They go into college and they wrestle freestyle. So like if someone were to wave the magic wand and say high school wrestling is now freestyle wrestling, boys and girls, I'm all in, jumping both feet, right? Because, the Olympics, right? Like the apex, like the top international. But on the men's side, we have an established collegiate style of wrestling at the college level. So I'm good with where we're at. Like, okay, cool. Guys want to go to college, wrestle there. Apex is D1 wrestling. And if they're going to make that jump, they'll get in the right ROTC, right? The club, do that thing. On the women's side, like there's such a great opportunity for young women to not only participate at the high school level, but if they're athletic and like it and are bought in, to go compete in college. And they're competing in freestyle. Like we're not so far down the road that we couldn't, as an association and an organization, look at it and say, why wouldn't we train freestyle year round with these girls, and give them the best opportunity to go book it up for Coach Alexio over there in Illinois or in Iowa, or these other programs that are popping up all over the country. We've had a girls team at the high school now, at Tahoma High School, I want to say going on 4 years, the 5 years. And last year we sent our first female athlete to a college program over at Dickinson State with Springer, and I want to see more of that. So I'm all in. I got a little girl coming through as a freshman next year that I'm so excited to get to experience Tahoma wrestling on the women's side. And if you would have asked me 10 years ago, I'm like, man, I don't want to coach girls wrestling. And now I'm like, hey, are we gonna have a girls practice? Where are my female bears? Because it's a joy to coach these young ladies.
Yeah, I've got a daughter. She's 10, and yeah, the joys that come with it are great. And we've had a lot of females on the podcast, and it's really intriguing to hear how the sport has developed. Because we're 2007, right, back in the Andrew Michael Johnson days, the girls had to wrestle the boys, and it was tough for them out here because they were really having to put their nose to the grind. So it's great to see where it's developed. It's great to see that you're on board with that as well. And Coach, I just want to say thank you. You came on, here, growing women's wrestling. Yes, that's it. We appreciate that. So thank you everybody for tuning in. Coach Feist, do you run your Instagram? Like, are you inviting coaches in to kind of see, great job, Chris, love you from Dave, is that your dad?
That's my dad.
Oh, hey Dave, nice to meet you. Year-round freestyle for high school girls. Feist for president. That's your next shirt. Feist for president. Hey, don't get any ideas, Boomer. But Coach, so how can everybody follow you and the journey that you're on with Tahoma?
They could check our high school webpage. I actually went off Facebook and Instagram last October and just shut it all down, and didn't get back on until Boomer's like, yeah, there's some new high school rankings out. And I'm like, the message board doesn't put them out until like December. He's like, no, there's this new thing, like Washington wrestling rankings. I'm like, what? And I went on my wife's Facebook for the first, Facebook for the first time since October. And I looked you guys up. I'm like, oh, this is some cool content. Oh, okay. And the next day I got off work, and instead of going home, I went and reactivated my Facebook account.
Oh, here we go. We're bringing you back to social media, huh? That's
so
us.
I've been posting again. All I post are pictures of my children and pictures of my wrestlers at wrestling camps or duels. So you don't see anything else from me. I don't go politics. I don't go home improvement. I'm strictly pictures of kids and dogs and chickens and wrestling memes and pictures of my athletes training. So yeah, if you want to hit me up on Facebook or Instagram.
Well, and like you said, you're an open book, and you have your coaching philosophies. Where could you said if somebody emailed you, you can pass that info on? What was that email again?
cfeist@tahomasd.us.
cfeist@tahomasd.us. So great.
Look me up on Facebook. You can send me a message. And if you're interested in any of the 3rd Point docs I've put together on mindset, on training, scheduling, etc., if I can help you, I will.
And then the last question I have, though, is on your schedule. So last year you guys came to duel Lake, and I was at that match, and that was great. Is now with a couple of the teams, are you dueling meet at all? Or are you gonna? Is there anything on your schedule now that's big like that maybe we can attend to go and help support?
Oh, okay, yeah. Let's see, what's the date? Yeah, January 21st. January 21st, we're gonna have a double duel. Stadium's a new high school to our league, so we're gonna book it up with Stadium And then right after, we're going to duel O-Town. The Cardinals are coming to town, and they're wicked tough, right? It should be a good environment. They travel well. So we'll get rowdy. If you guys can make it, come on down. If not, we'll get on a chat with Boomtown, see if we can't set up a Facebook Live for you and get that out to the people.
Yeah, Coach, we've toyed with an idea about maybe we can do commentary for the match. Would you be open to something like that?
Oh, 100%. We've got our schools set up for it, man. We've got upper decking for media where you can set up with cameras and wire in and mics and whole bit.
I need that. That'd be so awesome.
We throw out the red carpet.
Well, that's so cool. But
another thing I'm excited for on the schedule, January 3rd and 4th, we're heading to Wisconsin for the Clash. Last time we went there, I think it was maybe 2017. We won state that year, and we went out there. Oh my God! Like the way they set this tournament up is they seed it, and then you go in and you wrestle your first match, and if you win it, you go up top, right? And you wrestle in the top 16. You get put in a pool of 4, and if you lose it, same thing, and the one down below. Well, we get like the hometown boys from Minnesota right down the road who are super tough, and they're seated ahead of us. And we pulled a rabbit out of the hat because we squeaked by them and we're like, yay, until I saw the pool they put us in. And we got Buchanan and Roseburg, Oregon, and just these hammers. And we didn't win another duel. We just got smashed. State champ team just getting rough rided. And then the team that we beat goes down and they win every match, right? So
wow.
Be careful what you ask for. I guess we were grateful for it. It was a good learning experience. But
and those Wisconsin boys, those are some tough kids. Pretty much tough guys everywhere, right? So are you traveling any other tournaments? Is that the big one?
We'll head east to Tri-State. God, I hate going to Tri-State. There's just the drive, the snow. It's like the Terror Dome in there, these little mats, people gathered around. You got someone's grandma calling you an ass over your shoulder. I'm like, who is this lady? Right? But the people are good. The teams are tough as heck. And we're all about supporting Cardinal Wrestling over there. We love what they're doing at NIC with Coach Booth and the whole staff over there. They're doing things right, man. They're going to be tough. I'm a big fan. So we're going to go do that tournament. We'll hit up the Viking Invite. That's probably one of the best one-day tournaments in the state. We open up over there at Edmonds. They do a real nice job. It's kind of a funky bracket. I already told Alfie that, but whatever. You get good matches, and we're trying to put a pretty challenging schedule together. And
Coach, maybe I should ask you this. We didn't get a chance to touch on this, and I didn't want to touch on this without Sam being here, but maybe I'd like just your comments on a dual meet state tournament. I know that I think you're for it, and I want to say I know. You're not for it. Okay. Yeah. Can we, am I opening up a can of worms? We should bring you back on, or
I don't know. I don't think we're going there's too many unknowns. Our focus is win the high school state tournament. And I know a little bit about it, but it's.
I think Alfie's championing it or trying to.
I love Alfie, man. He's a good guy. He's trying to grow the sport. He runs a good program, but I don't understand the concept of doing away with regionals and do this super state. And now instead of regionals, we're bringing in this. I'm a creature of habit and just not real sure about any of this right now. So I got to get through a couple years of it and see how it shakes out. And I don't know. I'm for going to a tournament right before state tournament, and I don't know what the criteria is for getting in this and that. I don't know. There's a lot of unknowns. I've had a couple folks talk to me about it. They'd like us to go. As of now, my schedule's set. I don't think we'll be there, but I'll be watching.
I don't think it's going to happen this year, but I mean, obviously, I think there's a big enough drum that's being beat out there right now for people to really start talking about it. Obviously,
the loudest voices aren't always right.
Yeah, that's true too. That's true too. And those voices are also pretty hard on our weight cutting, stuff that we have and some of this stuff and recording and reporting. I think we're in too much of a little bit of an unknown right now with a bunch of things for the dual meat state to get off the ground this year, but I think it will definitely be a conversation that we'll move on with further. Coach, anything left to say as we go ahead and get you out of here?
No, just I appreciate the time. Anytime someone's trying to do something new that I view as positive, I'm going to support that. And I definitely want to come on to support you guys. You're putting out some good content, and I'm a fan, and I just looking forward to see what you guys got going next. So don't sleep on trying to come and live cast our Ording duel. It'll be fire, man. They're tough, right? Like that'd be a lot of fun.
Hey, the invite's open for us, so we might have to just snag that up. That's just, expect us to be there at this point, so I'll say yes to that. But Coach, thank you so much. You're totally good to sign off here now. Get back to the chickens, the family. We really appreciate you, and I know that the state of Washington appreciates the comment today. So we will see you again soon. Thank you. So.
All right, have a great evening. Thanks, Matt.
Yeah, bye-bye. All right, that was Coach Feist. Great podcast. We really appreciate everybody. Give us a like, a follow, and a subscribe. If you feel inclined to donate on Spotify, that's welcome. We're not asking for it. Throw us a nickel if you got it. But we are the Washington Wrestling Rankings podcast. For Sam Otto, I am Matt, and we will see you guys next time.